Representative Allman.
Present.
Representative Angelos.
Here.
Representative Harrelson.
Here.
Representative Pendergraft.
Here.
Representative Sherwood.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Senator Driscoll. Senator French. Senator Garou.
Here.
Senator Larson.
Here.
Co-Chairman Salazar.
Here.
Chairman Bear.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Ms. Chasson, are we online? Thank you. Just a brief announcement. It's a special day today. It's somebody's birthday in here, and because my voice is what it is, we're not going to sing happy birthday. I know that's a real disappointment to everybody, but Director Hibbard, happy birthday. Thank you for your service. And many, many more. Okay. Mr. Co-Chair, do you have any comments you'd like to give? All right, with that, we're going to get rolling. Director Richards, please.
Mr. Chairman, the first agency for your consideration is the Board of Tourism, and I believe Director Bravo is here with his team to present. This is agency 066.
66. Thank you. Director, welcome. Please introduce yourself to the public and to the committee.
Great.
And we'll let you get started.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was mentioned, my name is Dominic Bravo. I'm the Executive Director for the Wyoming Office of Tourism. I'm really happy to be here to present to you today. With me today, I have some members of the Office of Tourism Board. I'm not going to claim that they represent districts and many communities, but I'm just going to let you know what community they live in. We have Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tony O'Brien from Cheyenne. I think they're standing or waving, but we have Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Quentin Blair from Cody, Mr. John Johnson from Casper, Mr. Sean Parker from Sheridan, Ms. Sharice Meadows Hawes from Jackson, Ms. Janessa Meredith from Rock Springs, Green River, Mr. Ken Barkey from Gillette, Mr. Taylor Phillips from Jackson, and Mr. Bud Betts from DuBois. In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, I also have with me some amazing staff. I have Kari Akins, the Director of Strategy and Business Operations, Michelle Howard, Senior Director of Brand Strategy, James Schoon, the Director of Global Partnerships, and Dion Roccaforte, Accounting Senior Manager. Mr. Chairman, I wasn't sure exactly what you wanted me to go through. If you wanted me to give you an overview of myself since I'm new, a little bit about the agency, and then dive into the budget, or what your preferences would be.
Director, since this is your first time here, please do give us a little bit of your background. That would be helpful for the public as well. And when we get into the budget, the only thing I'll ask is that you go ahead, if you have TRP requests, you can go ahead and forgo those. We've gone over all those before. So we'd like to hear your exception requests. And after that, we can just have a general discussion about your budget in general. So please proceed.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I started my career in parks. I was a law enforcement park ranger in Nevada. Did that for about 10 years. After that, I was fortunate to move here in 2008 to be the Deputy Director for the Division of State Parks, Historic Sites and Trails. And then we also stood up the Outdoor Rec Office during my tenure. So many of you in this room I know and I've worked with over the years. So it's great to be back here. I did a brief stint over at the University of Wyoming as a professor in the Outdoor Rec and Tourism Management degree program, and then was hired in January of 2020 to be the CEO of Visit Cheyenne, which is the local destination management organization, or what you folks might know as a CVB, or Lodging Tax Board. Did that for almost 6 years, and then again was blessed to be hired in this role starting in the middle of November. So I've been in this role since middle of November, and am excited to be here in front of you. And that's a brief part of my overview, but just so you folks know, I step into this role with a profound sense of responsibility. Obviously, the governor who placed his trust in me, to the Wyoming Office of Tourism Board that guides our mission to the people of Wyoming who deserve accountability and real results, and of course to you folks that safeguard our fiscal integrity of our state. And slightly just to digress from kind of what I have to just kind of present about the agency, I did want to say, and maybe you don't hear this enough for you folks, I know some of you have served in the military or first responders. Thank you for your service. As I mentioned, I served in law enforcement myself, but then also just all of you in general. Being on the Joint Appropriations Committee is one of the more difficult committees. You folks give up a lot of family time, a lot of travel time on the roads of our beautiful Wyoming. So I just wanted to say thank you for your service to our state. And then now diving in specifically to our Office of Tourism and where we are and where we're going. It's a small agency with a large mandate. So we have 25 employees dedicated to strengthening Wyoming's economy through tourism. And in Wyoming, tourism is not a soft industry. It's one of the major pillars of our state's economic strategy, one supported by the governor and consistently recognized by this and past legislatures. And just to give you a little bit of some of the big economic numbers for 2024, there was 8.7 million overnight visitors in 2024. And that pretty much lent itself to 4.9 billion. So that's billion with a B, direct spending. So 277 million in state and local tax revenue, and that positively impacts every single community in our state. In addition to that, we had 33,850 Wyoming jobs supported by the tourism economy, and these are the small businesses that embody why Wyoming is so special. And these impacts bolster every county, from destination management organizations to main streets, outfitters to restaurants, recreation businesses, and hospitality employers. So tourism is one of the few industries that grows without increasing pressure on the general fund. And most importantly, our office is funded entirely by the statewide lodging tax, not by general fund dollars. So, Mr. Chairman, without further ado, as was mentioned, our main budget page is on page 3. It totals $40.137 million. And we did have a single exception request, but that was a TRP. So other than that, I can stand for any questions or any discussion that you might have.
Okay, we'll open it up to the committee. Questions for the director? Representative Haroldson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Director. Congratulations. It's good to see you on the other side. We've saw you on the park side in that world, but now over here. Can you kind of just give us a little bit of a perspective? Obviously, we saw COVID kind of bring this groundswell into Wyoming because we were kind of we social distance normally type concept, right? We kind of coined that and ran with that. Talk to me, as we've seen, we're 5 years in now, going into our 6th year after COVID. Talk to me about what we're seeing trend wise. Are we seeing kind of a carry out because of that huge influx of people that came in maybe for the first time into Wyoming? Kind of talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing trending going forward out of our COVID pandemic.
Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Haroldson. So the great thing about us is we have a really strong brand in the marketplace. So both domestic travel, international travel, we're one of the bucket list states that everyone wants to come see. So for us, it's been amazing. And I will say one of the things that is the greatest thing outside of everything we do from amazing communities is the people of Wyoming. So many of the folks that have come to visit us, we have a high percentage of return visitors. So they want to come back. They've had a great time. They put it back on their bucket list and say, I want to return. So far trending has been great. We've seen a slight, I don't want to say decline by any means, but a little bit of a tapering off of international influx. But ultimately, we're on the bucket list for many folks, and we have a strong brand out in the marketplace. So far, trends have been really good for us and really positive.
Follow up, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to shift gears and we're going to go over to trails. This is a conversation I know you and I we've had in the past. We are constantly having to try to figure out, obviously you go like down in this area where we've got a huge influx coming up from the south, and we're seeing just this, I mean, we're using the commodity, right? But maybe overusing the commodity as well. Whenever there are certain places where you go where it's like, man, this isn't what it used to be. It feels like I'm in the middle of rush hour traffic, but I'm now on a trail. And this idea and this conversation of the pay to play game of our ORVs, our snowmobiles, they're doing their job, but mountain bikes and that type of stuff aren't as much. Talk to it about the tourism side and maybe a game plan working with state parks and outdoor rec for how do we open more trails? How do we do a better job of this? Understanding people are at a point where they're willing to pay to get a commodity that they want. Have you guys kind of been in contact and conversation with the Trails program in that reality? Director?
So, Mr. Chairman, not direct conversations. I think a part of my overall vision and strategy is in alignment with that. I think in today's day and age of technology, there's a lot of things we can do. One, to make sure we're distributing folks around to maybe, less loved areas that could use that extra attention, that extra visitor component. And of course, there are many ways you can look at funding those mechanisms through that pay to play component. I know there's in front of this body, there's been different ideas of permit systems and things. So I have not had the chance to talk with state parks in that space, but I'm sure they're open to that conversation, and we'll definitely dive into that fairly quickly.
And one more follow-up.
Please.
Thank you. Excellent. Please do, because I think that's a conversation that needs to happen. And I think it's going to be intricate to moving this forward as more and more people want to be here. More and more people want to mountain bike and hike and be on these trails. And what does that look like? Another thing, as you guys opened up over in the Kemmer Rock Springs area with that, the ORV presence is you're like, hey, let's actually have a tour type design. I know we opened up some of the legality of putting ORVs on county roads and on state maintained roads. Can you talk a little bit about maybe any vision as that moving forward into other areas? Because I can think even in my neck of the woods, some possible options where we could tie Laramie into Wheatland, into Douglas, into Casper, back into Laramie type conversation where we can open up the Laramie range a little more into that. Can you talk a little bit if that's been on the radar or what that looks like to bring that
Director,
under
do
the
you have a
radar?
plan to subvert Amtrak?
Mr. Chairman, other than getting excited about that topic, no, we haven't had that conversation, but that's one of the things that I'm passionate about. So I'll definitely have that conversation with the other director in state parks and the trails program. And I don't see why we wouldn't work in partnership on something like that.
Representative Alamand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for being here, sir. And congratulations on your new post. Do you see any pushback of tourism with our wind turbines and solar farms that we're looking at bringing into the state? We've already got a lot, but a lot more coming. And I hear from some tourists that we didn't come here to see wind turbines. What do you see about that?
Director.
Mr. Chairman, I guess as new as I am in my role, I've seen ancillary components of that. And I did also when I was with state parks. So I know there were a lot of different thoughts around how to mitigate that, especially from a view shed standpoint. But other than that, that's probably my limited access to information on that piece.
Follow up? Okay. Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Director Bravo. A couple weeks ago, we had Wyoming Public Television here in front of us, and they have a YouTube channel. And so we were asking them if you had worked with them to advertise on that channel. Has that been something you have had a discussion with Director since then, or is that in the works?
Director. Mr. Chairman, which YouTube? Which YouTube?
The Wyoming Public Television.
So, Mr. Chairman and Representative Angelos, so I know I have a meeting set up sometime, might be next week with public television, but that's all I have at this point. So no, they haven't talked about anything with that piece.
Representative Sherwood. Oh,
Thank
follow
you.
up, Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Director Bravo. I think that was just something that had been brought up, and maybe that was in the works, but we'd love to hear back from you on how that might go forward. I think that's an interesting concept. So thanks so much.
They are definitely looking for some funding.
Okay.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the director and his team for being here. I appreciate the work you do, and I know that the businesses in my community appreciate the work you do as well. My question is regarding the interconnection between YDOT's budget and the air capacity agreement. And I would just love your thoughts on the governor's recommendation of using 12 million from your operations account. So not the project reserve account, your operations account, for the air capacity agreement. Just wondered if you could, to use the chairman's phrase, opine on that, and maybe the pros and cons of that account versus the reserve account. Thank you.
Director.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Sherwood, without getting too far in the weeds and me trying to do math here in front of you. And I've only been on the job, a month and a half or so, but so 441 specifically is where the funding comes in and is our main operating account. However, any budget that we present to you and the governor is where we get our spending authority. So obviously anything over that goes into the operating account. So it does, just from like semantics and how it looks, it would be preferable that everything comes out of the reserve account. However, there is that funding available that is over what we have as spending authority in 441. So at least at this point, especially as long as it's one time, and obviously supporting what the governor put forward, that makes sense to us in this space. To be able to put that funding in place as long as it's one time, because obviously how the percentages change will change starting July, and there'll be more going into the reserve and event or a special project account. So from our standpoint, it makes sense. We're obviously there's a tourism feature specific for these airports to be supported. It's a critical part of what tourism does and how we offer things, everything from conventions to meetings to how business is done. So it definitely has a tourism component to it. So from my end, we support that move, and I can go deeper if you need me to, but that hopefully answers that question.
Follow up, go ahead, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, and thank you for this. I guess 2 follow-up questions. My understanding is that best practices that you would have what you would need for the next 2 years in the operations reserve account. So just want clarification or confirmation that that is available there. And then second, if you could speak to some of the projects that you envision using the reserve account for, maybe looking into the future. Thank you.
Director?
So, Mr. Chairman, specifically on page 14 with 441. So as it shows within the balance, when you take into account, and we talk about that as the note, that shows that estimated balance. So that takes into account having the funding for the upcoming biennium, and then any of the funding that's been taken out for what we're talking about for those special projects. So it leaves that balance piece that can be used for that 12 million. So yes, it has what we need to have that safeguard in place.
Okay. So, did you have a follow-up? Representative Sherwood?
Yes, sorry, there was a 2-part question.
Oh.
I apologize there. If you could speak to the projects that you might be utilizing the reserve fund for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize, Representative Sherwood. So I think in general, we've been having just meetings up front now, and we'll probably spend the next year looking at that and working with you folks in the legislature, the communities, because it took a little bit of time for that actual account to build enough of a balance to look at what type of statewide, very impactful destination development level projects there are. So I don't really have specific things, but we have been talking about everything from statewide major events to things that have substantial impact to the entire state when it comes to destination development. So I don't have specifics, but we definitely have kind of initial outline plans in place now that the balance of that fund is finally reaching a level that would actually have impact. But it would definitely be in something in partnership with you folks on the legislature, local communities, local destination management organizations, all of those folks, so we can really define what makes the most sense for our state.
I have a cold, but I don't know that I heard an answer there to specific project, did we? Please.
Follow up. I understand that the decisions haven't been made on what will be spent in the future. So maybe I'll adjust my question and say, can you give us examples of types of projects that have been funded last 2 years? Thank you.
I'll pass it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm
Please
Kar-
introduce
yes.
yourself to the public and
I'm Kari Akins, the Director of Strategy and Business Operations for the Wyoming Office of Tourism. So if you take a look at the reserve account breakdown, which is on page 18 of your budget books, you can see in the second column for the 23-24 biennium that there was $14,650,000 of expenditures out of the reserve account. A quick just listing off of what those things went to. That went to $6 million went to the Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, $2.5 million went to the Shooting Sports Task Force, $2 million went to the Capitol Square Wayfinding Committee, $2 million went to granting for, at state parks for outdoor recreation. $1.5 million went to renovations at the Northeast and Southeast Welcome Centers and the Quebec One State Historic Site. $400,000 went to state parks for the initial funding for the Capitol Curator. And then $250,000 was matching funds for the University of Wyoming Worth Then Initiative, now J. Kemmerer Institute. In the next column over, you can see $8.5 million in projects funded in the 25-26 biennium. That once again was $6 million to the Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund. And then that was $2.5 million that was sent, that was put aside in case Casper was awarded the national air races. That ended up not, they ended up not being awarded that bid. And so then in the column over, you can see $2.5 million being reverted back into that reserve account. And then you can also see that upcoming in this upcoming biennium and in the next biennium is that ongoing $6 million for the Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund. That appropriation will continue until that fund has reached the statutory amount, which I believe is $50 million.
Vice Chairman Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on the job. Great to see an entire board out here. Thank you, guys. You've done a stellar job. It's kind of fun. I don't think you're patting yourself on the back good enough. I'm a rancher and I'm in tourism, and I've watched in the time I've gone in from tourism going to be the number 3 industry to the number 2. And I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on, as we did the lodging tax, which was very controversial, and I understand it, what has happened, because that money under the line was never anticipated. And I'm watching all of us across the state do a lot of great things for the state of Wyoming from an agency that actually is generating money for all of us to generate more money. And I for one, am just exceptionally proud of what you guys have done. And if you'd lay out a little bit on your base end, and then you've fleshed out the operations count some, but how the levels work and what goes. I see you're up tourism up another 1.4%. So that fund, I would anticipate, is going to continue to grow, or at least I hope you tell me so. It looks like we're going to have a good year. My last one is, I am somewhat disappointed in the welcome centers about the amount of use that we're actually getting watching what happens on the interstates. Is there a way that we can enhance that? They're such a great way to direct tourists to where we want them to go. And as you're well aware, we've got areas that probably are almost getting too many tourists and others that could use more. And you guys are really one of our best rural economic development tools we have, because tourism and communities like I'm in are a big part of it at this point. And can you flesh out a little bit both visitor centers and how you're working to get more tourists into the rural area? And I understand it's really easy to advertise the Tetons and Devil's Tower, and that's kind of the deal, but guys are already coming there. How do we get them to the other areas, and what are we doing to do that?
Director. Mr. Chairman and Senator Driscoll, great questions. To the specific one, again, I appreciate the conversation about being the second largest kind of economic driver for the state of Wyoming. As you mentioned, we've seen incredible growth. A lot of that is, again, with the legislature giving us the ability to do some amazing things in marketing. So we're hitting places in the market, specifically enticing folks all over the country and all over the world to come see us as a destination. And then specifically to the visitor centers, as Kari just mentioned, we have gone through some major renovations to bring them up to a whole new level of experience. And then just leveraging our marketing as people are in market to pull them off and be able to see those great areas both in the Northeast and here in the South. Well, technically all entries into Wyoming, everywhere they can attend. And then specifically to rural, that's a big passion of mine. So for us, a lot of the pieces we do that is with the destination development dollars. So to be able to push that directly to the destination management organizations that some of you may even sit on on their boards or work closely with them, is they are able to then draw on some things with co-ops with our entity and really get that marketing. Once we get them here to the state, they then pull and draw them into those communities to spend time, everywhere from, Thermopolis to Du Bois, Wind River Range to Evanston, Gillette, Moorcroft, you name it, where we're getting them in those spots and places. And so far that I've heard, heads and beds and hotels have been doing really great. And obviously those attractions are seeing an influx of people. So we leverage every possible marketing piece that's available to us, and do it in a very strategic way using all the data that we have. And so our return on investment is substantial. And I guess the only other thing I would say, and if we can always get you those numbers here, the great thing about technology is we actually have conversions. So a lot of the marketing we do, a lot of the PR we do actually shows people seeing our ads, visiting here and spending money, and we can actually measure the funding that they're spending. So that visitor spend has been pretty substantial, and they really also add into that sales tax piece. They're a big part of what sales tax gets made for then supporting those local communities.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. That's exactly. With that being said, should we be potentially looking at shifting some of that below the money line up? Could you guys get us better bang for the buck potentially on increasing base budget a little bit? And I realize that's a touchy subject, but my end is it's all generated, and it's a little like we do with some of our other areas is every dollar we spend brings more dollars in. Can you talk a little about the multiplier factor and what it might mean if we shifted up a percentage of that to actually feed the beast to bring us some more dollars back in? Because that's, for all of us, that's what this committee does. We figure out how to allocate dollars, and you're one of the few that actually generate dollars. It's not, we get a bang for the buck. So could you follow up on that? And then I'll do my last follow-up that what you might be doing for the 250th coming up, because obviously you folks play a key role, and I think Wyoming's going to be a very popular state for the 250th, and I was wanting to know kind of what your plans were on that. Thank you.
Director Bravo. Mr. Chairman, I'll answer at least the first question, and I might toss it over to Kari to answer about the 250th. But for the first part, I mean, obviously, if additional funding came our way, we have strategy in place to where we could put that into markets, more destination development funds out to our partners, and especially with AI and things that are going on in that space, being able to be nimble enough to move quick enough in that space. So additional funding would obviously always be strategically put out that would then bring back a good return on investment. So that's always something that's in place. As for the 250th.
One quick, Mr. Chairman, what might the multiplier actually be if we put $1 million in you? What might we think we might get out of it? Because I know you guys kind of got those numbers. It's kind of fun when you spend $1 and you get X amount back, and I'd kind of like for us to know what we get back roughly or.
And thanks to Kari, specifically on page 5 within our narrative, a $1 million increase in paid media campaign represents approximately $10 million increase in tax revenues. So it's basically 1 to 10.
Speaker Pro Tem Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So turning to page 14 on your guys' budget book and looking at your estimates and currents on this. So we're looking at 21, 22 special revenues in that 1275 account at 30 mil, which that's awesome. 23, 24, we're up to 50 mil almost. But then we see this downturn, estimated income in this account of 44, 40, 36. So as we're going in the next 3 biennium, we're seeing this decline in revenue off of our lodging tax from what I can tell, because obviously the 5907, that would be royalties off of advertising and media. That stays constant, but the tourism count, the Wyoming tourism account drops down almost back to the 21, 22. Can you talk a little bit about that? We see the same thing happening on page 18 on that chart. Can you talk about why you're anticipating a slow down in the growth curve?
Ms. Eakins.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Haroldson. So, of course, the lodging tax was instituted at a very interesting time when we ended up having immediately basically a unicorn year where a whole bunch of visitors decided that they wanted to be in the wide open spaces of Wyoming, and state parks and national parks saw record visitation. And then the next year, of course, there was immediately not quite that unicorn year. And so this office at that time adopted the practice of, in its estimates of future years, assuming a 10% decrease in lodging tax revenue, just to make sure that if there happened to be a decrease, just basically using a conservative budgeting approach to make sure that we would not be standing before this committee, you assuming there's going to be a certain amount of money, and then if we happen to have another decline year, there would not be that money there and it's already been appropriated. So please know that all of these numbers are using that conservative method of budgeting, and all of our forecast revenue all of our revenue forecasting does assume a 10% decrease year over year, just to make sure that we are not asking you to appropriate any funds that we are not 100% confident will be there.
Follow up?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So going back to the first question I asked, after COVID, we're 6 years out now. Have we seen that 10% decline? And I understand right out of the gate, we did see that, because you can't sustain that, right? I mean, we understand that. Well, maybe we can, but I don't think our state parks are like, please don't make us sustain that. But are we seeing this 10% decline? And do we have proof of that in your guys' run out? Or is this kind of a deal where it is just conservative, or is this legitimate in its 10% run out?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Haroldson. So in that second year of collections, there was a 9% decline. Since then, there has been somewhere between a 5 to 10% increase year over year. This year, we're not seeing quite that amount of increase. As Senator Driscoll mentioned, I think for the fiscal year, we're at about a 1.4% increase. So just because we kind of learned early on that there is no predicting what may happen outside of your control, it has just remain the practice of this office to remain conservative in those forecast revenues.
Okay. Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, do you have any idea of the tax collected, how much of it is paid by Wyoming residents? Like, for example, parents or grandparents from Powell going to Evanston for a wrestling tournament, and they're paying this tax. They're spending a couple nights, so they're paying this tax. I mean, and that happens all over the state. That's cool. You know, they're not, quote, tourists. There. Do you have any idea the percentage there?
Ms. Eakins.
Mr. Chairman, Senator French. So we do not have a direct line to that data because we don't ask the hotels to put that information together and report that to us. However, using other data that we have and kind of making some assumptions off of surveys as well, typically, historically, the in-state spend among Wyoming tourists has been about 10% Wyoming residents, and then usually somewhere between 5 to 10% international, and then the other 80% has been domestic visitors from other people, other U.S. citizens. Since the pandemic, the international tourism is the one that has remained lower, closer to that 5%. And then we have seen a slight increase. We do not have hard numbers for the most recent years. We don't really have any hard numbers. These are basically estimates. But so probably somewhere between 10 to 15% in there, depending on international travel.
Follow. Minority Floor Leader Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good morning, all. Thank you. As the good president said, thanks for all of you being here. I know it's a lot of travel time, and so appreciate y'all showing up. Question, I want to kind of get into this budget thing too a little bit. I understand your answer to Representative Haroldson's question, but usually we use rolling averages to figure this out, but we don't really have a 5-year rolling average because we haven't been, this hasn't been here this is just going into year 5 and 6 of the collection. So is that probably part of the reason why you're taking more of a conservative approach? Would you agree with that?
Ms. Eakins.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, that is correct, because we only have the actuals of the 80-20%. We have not hit the point where it will roll over and where it will turn into the 5-year rolling average of 80% going into that tourism account. So at that point, if there is a year where there is an increase in the lodging tax, once we make that change in this biennium, any surplus would go wholly into that reserve account. Right now, any surplus is being split between the two accounts.
Okay.
But yeah, so we cannot make that prediction, which is
Thank you. Following up that, and also doing that conservative approach by using a down bubble, since we don't have that much historical information. That's just best practices. It's probably been directed by the departments who help you put together these budgets, and the office downstairs that kind of runs that part of it, the shop. Would that be a fair, accurate portrayal of what we're doing here?
Ms. Eakins?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Groove, that is correct.
I can have another follow-up.
One more follow-up.
Just to give me, kind of give the committee a little flavor of this, is that when, we're working with the local entities who are also collecting a piece of this tax. So give me an example of something that you're doing in your office to reach back to, say, another community. Pick one, although not one of the usual suspects, but maybe one of the communities that has more of a growing sense of tourism. How you interface with them, how you work with them. They come to you with a proposal. Do you send money down to them? Give the committee a sense of how that works with a specific example.
Director Bravo. Mr. Chairman, Senator Grew. So especially in the last few years, it's been really fantastic, because kind of elevating all communities to the same level has been the goal. So for instance, I can think of, I'm trying to think of one that may be small, anywhere from like, Bighorn to something, but ultimately we send a group around to help them develop, with the community in mind, all the decision makers, to kind of bring up their own strategic plan. What are the gaps? What are the assets? What needs to happen? It could be an outdoor recreation. It could be a museum. It could be an event. It could be something overall. And then utilizing destination development dollars that we do send directly to them, grant to them, they're able to then implement those things. And on top of that, we also offer co-ops within Office of Tourism that allow them to buy into certain advertising pieces that reduce that price. So we make it the cost of entry really easy. So each of those communities are elevated, so they get to the point where they have a very workable action strategy within their strategic plan. They get funding in addition to the funding that they collect as well, that enhances them, that puts them on the same level of marketing. So as I mentioned, we bring the folks into the state, and then we draw them in. Of course, I can speak specifically only because I was just at Visit Cheyenne. Some of the things we're able to do, in partnership with the Cowboy Channel, be able to put on events that normally would not be able to be put on in our community, in partnership with our county commissioners, really lent itself to major increases in visitation. And we're doing that in every corner of every lodging tax board to basically just elevate them all to the same level. And obviously, as you mentioned, they're at different levels, but it's been a really exciting time, and it's only going to progress more as we get more systems and more communities up to that level.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it would be fair to say then, to sum up, that you're working with all the communities around, large and small, as far as, that are developing. Like, I'm kind of thinking too about, well, it's like the southwest quadrant of the state, where they're working on a trail system. And so, ATV trails and, that kind of thing, that you're working with them to help develop that project. And those projects, I know they're working through a lot of the specifics, but I think it gets back to Senator French's question about, there is an angst about local folks who travel in state and then pay lodging tax, and how does that work? But in actuality, those dollars and the tourism dollars that come in go back to those communities. And so you're working with them. So there is kind of a back and forth, that those community dollars can spend then more tourism there in those communities. Therefore, ergo, you start to raise taxes there. Would that kind of be the way we're looking at it?
Director? Well, and Mr. Chairman and Senator Rude, just in the grand scheme of things, overall, the visitor economy itself is what builds our communities. As I mentioned, everything from visitors are what pay, a good chunk of the sales tax. They're the ones, and as you mentioned, specific development dollars going back into assets. But when you think about how Wyoming is situated, many of the mom and pop restaurants on Main Street, many of the retail, many of the things are driven because the visitor economy comes into play. So you wouldn't have that local coffee shop or that local restaurant or any of those things in your own community to enjoy if it wasn't for the visitor economy. So in the space that you're saying is, yes, everything that we invest and do has a direct positive impact and benefit to citizens and residents on their quality of life and in the enjoyment and things that they get to do, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, and this might be something that Director Hibbard might key off on. This current administration is very excited about the 250th anniversary. So I want to, or our birthday, and I want to touch on what Senator Driscoll had mentioned. Is there any plans? I mean, I know that there probably has got to be some federal grants for that too. Is there anything that you're working on as far as federal grants or seeking those out for those events? And then has that gone down to maybe your local lodging boards are doing the same thing?
Ms. Eakins?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Angelos. So if you look on page 6 of your budget book, you can see under the list of our multi-agency shared initiatives, about halfway down the page, there is Celebrating America's 250. And that gives a quick look at some of the work our agency has done in being involved with that America's 250 task force. That committee did just finish granting out the last of the state funds that were available to local communities for those celebrations. And then from our office's standpoint, we're involved in the event subcommittee for the events that will be happening here on July 4th of 2026. And then we also head up the marketing committee to make sure that everybody is aware of everything that will be going on. So that advertising actually is getting going this month. And we also built a website to have all of those opportunities there. As far as on the federal grant side, most of the support has been helping local communities apply for any federal opportunities that might be, but the bulk of the funding that was made available to communities was the state funding that came through the legislature a couple of years ago.
I believe that was 2.5 million. Follow up.
That's wonderful. I remember us taking care of the 250th last year. Is it something that you have worked with Mr. Hibbard to find out if there are federal grants available?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Angelos, our office specifically has not done that. I'm not aware of if other task force members have reached out to Director Hibbard or not.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we are in fact collaborating on that and tracking the funding and the flows of that funding. And we'll also do a quick TA request to see what's out there that's available in the federal fund. And most importantly, the GMO is focused on the local government. So we'd be happy to facilitate and find out anything we can discover.
Yes, Minority Floor Leader Group.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I forgot a question. You touched on it, and I just wanted to make sure I got it straight in my head. The shooting sports complex. Where are we? How much funding has been? We allocated funds. I know part of them were out of this budget, but I just want to say, where are we with regard to that funding right now?
Ms. Eakins?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru. So $2.5 million has come out of the reserve account to go towards that shooting sports complex. And then we did have a member of our staff, James Schoon, that participated on that task force. At this time, most of our support is just seeing if it's just kind of waiting for the opportunity to lend support once there is something to promote.
Follow, go ahead.
So that's okay. So that's where we're at. 2.5 out the door. That's it. There's no other requests on the table. There's no other allocated funds. They're sitting somewhere waiting to be released to go off on that from this account.
Ms. Eakins?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, that is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Director Richards, I'd like a little bit of clarification on this as well, because I know in the last session, the supplemental budget had an appropriation in there for the original balance of the 10 million. And then because that bill died, we ended up passing a different bill that had 10 million in it. We were going to revert the original 10 million. Have we accounted for all that? Is that 10 million coming back to the state that was set aside for this shooting complex?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that 10 million will revert absent legislative action on June 30th of 2026. Keep in mind that 10 million was 2.5 from the game and fish, which has already been committed, 2.5 from tourism, and 5 million of general funds. The legislature could offer an amendment to retain some or all of that for the purposes of the shooting complex, if it so desired.
And the funding in the bill from last year was the same. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, no. The funding from the bill from last year was from the SIPA account, I believe, not the general fund.
And would that be 5 million from the SIPA?
Mr. Chairman, I'll double check. I believe it was all 10 million from the SIPA account. Let me check.
Mr. Chairman, while he's looking for that, can I throw a question towards him?
Please.
So in regards to that, do we have a clear perspective of where that project's at? Because obviously it just kind of seems to continue to carry on. And so do we have an idea of where they're at, how close they are to saying, hey, promote us, we're ready to bring people in? Do we have a direction? I know we have property. I know I've seen plans. But how many timbers are in the ground? How many targets are on the Terra? Do we have that figured out?
Director Bravo.
Mr. Chairman, and as was mentioned, James has sat on the task force, and if he has additional, but to my knowledge, we aren't at that space yet that I know.
Let's have him come forward just to give us an update of what he does know. But in the what's that? Yeah. Director Richards, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I wanted to confirm last year's appropriation, the full 10 million was from SIPA. And you might recall some of the reasons why is it was late in the session and the limited number of legislative vehicles to add an appropriation.
Right. So just for a little bit more clarification, we've appropriated 2.5 from the tourism, 2.5 from game and fish. There's 5 million. We originally appropriated 5 from general fund. That's going to revert in July, on July 30th. And we've now also, as of last year, appropriated 10 million for a total of 15, and that 10 came from SIPA.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just rephrase a little bit of that. You've actually appropriated a total of 20 million, 2.5, 2.5, 5, and 10. Of that amount, all but the SIPA money will revert if absent legislative action, including the tourism money of 2.5 will revert absent legislative action, and the game and fish funds will revert absent legislative action. So you've appropriated a total of 20 million, and 10 of that, the entirety of the first tranche of funding, will revert absent legislative action.
So what about monies that have been obligated?
Mr. Chairman, the project itself does not have access to the first 10 million. It has no ability to access the general funds, the tourism funds, or the game and fish funds until the legislature affirmatively acts. So you appropriated it, but put a proviso on it that it requires additional legislative action.
And how about the SIPA?
The SIPA is free and clear. That is available, and I believe there is an MOU in place. Well, I know there is an MOU in place between state parks and the Joint Powers Board for the shooting complex, and those funds are committed.
All 10 million is committed.
Well, there is a MOU. I don't believe it is spent. I don't believe it is obligated to a construction company, but it is committed such that they have an MOU in place.
Thank you for that clarification. Very helpful. All right, sir, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me this morning. My name is James Schoon. I'm the Director of Global Partnerships at the Office of Tourism. I did have the honor of participating in that committee that found the shooting complex location. We had a lot of great communities come out, had a lot of testimony in front of us, had some great legislators leading us, Senator Hicks as well as Representative Washit, amongst many others. But once we came up with the location, it really was transferred over to the local community and that committee. So at this point, we are waiting to find out their next steps. Once they start building that out, I know there has been some acclamations and moving forward on that. But really at this point, until they have something that we can promote, we really haven't been we have been actively available, but we haven't actively been promoting or pushing on that side.
Representative Harrelson, does that help answer your question? Okay, thank you for calling forward.
Thank you so much.
Okay, further questions?
Actually, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
sorry,
Representative Harrelson.
I'm gonna go just a freckle deeper than that. One of the concerns and frustrations that I've heard from this body is how many more asks are gonna come? I mean, is it a deal where we're seeing the end of this tunnel and where we can actually go, this is a reality, or is it just gonna keep coming back? Now, Mr. Richards, thanks for the clarification on kind of this holdup on that first 10 million, where it's kind of like, hey, here you go, but never mind, you don't quite get it because we haven't taken those actions. And we understand that there were some situations outside of people's control on that. With where you're at, is it a situation that you feel this project can find its entirety and completion with the 10 million of SIPA alone? Or do we need that legislative action to release those other funds? And if that were to take place, is it going to keep coming back for more asks? Kind of give us a little bit of, and I understand that you're speaking for an entire board. And so I also give you that freedom to just say, I got a punt on this one because I can't answer that, but just show me a little of what you've been hearing and what you've got.
Mr. Schoon, I think you're closest to the situation.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, that is a very tough question. And honestly, I am not probably the person that'd be able to answer that. At this point, we went through the process of finding the location, and I know that they have some great structure in place on moving forward with it. The roadblocks and pieces that come up, it's going to be hard to foresee that from my position. I know there's many great people on that committee that are working on that, and we'd be able to probably speak better than I would be at this point. But to my understanding, it sounds like things are moving forward as planned. So unfortunately, that's the best I can give you at this point.
One more follow-up.
Please.
Thank you. So I mean, probably everyone here knows I love to shoot. Shooting is a huge part of my life. I dimple a lot of primers every year. So hear me with that lens. As an appropriator, as a legislator, we don't want to keep seeing this come back. This has got to find its freedom, and we've got to find, because at this point, I'm hearing people that supported it going, we're done with this, because if it's just going to keep reoccurring, keep boiling back up to the surface, this is frustrating. And so having built ranges, having been a part of that, there comes a point where if we can't build world-class facilities for that type of a price range, when we're already having the property be available as it has, then we need to start asking some questions. So take that back to your board, that you have support, but that support may not be as happy if we keep seeing an ask coming back.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Please. Good.
Just to clarify, I'm actually not part of the board. I was just part of the committee to find the location, and then we're moving forward as the promotional arm and assisting on the marketing side and the tourism aspects of that. But I definitely will bring that back to the folks that are currently working on it. So thank you so much.
All right. I know I had somebody that was Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up on that frustration, was originally proposed for $10 million, and we would not come back to the well at all. 10, that was it. So there's a lot of frustration out there that they're asking for us to authorize an additional 5 million. And we were also told that there would be private funds, plenty of private funds that would take care of the project. Do you know how many private funds they have raised? And
Mr. Schoon?
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, I cannot speak to that, unfortunately. Again, I was only part of the committee that was finding the location. I know that was part of it. I can definitely try to find out some information and pass that along from that committee. It would come from the committee that's working on it currently.
Director Richards, can we get some representative from that committee to come before us before we're done with our 2 weeks here?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Larson?
I didn't think this was coming up today.
Yeah,
I am on the task force. I am a chairman of that.
okay.
You senators? Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Director,
Chairman
I think I
Washit,
have my answer.
Mr. Chairman. Chairman Washit is also on that board. We have Representative Heff, and I'm trying to think, I think Senator Kolb on there. This board is working very, very hard. The Joint Powers Board for the shooting complex is working very, very hard, been at it for a year. Voluntary time commitment. They do have a new CEO hired. They are headed to the SHOT Show to promote this. I think tourism is maybe joining them, I hope, as far as I know. But it is going very well. And I need to state that, yes, in 2023, the ask was for 10 million. And I think it was described how those funds would go about. We had difficulty getting that 10 million last year. So we went through the SLIB or SIPA account, and those the other funds are still sitting there. I do need to say that the ask, the original for 10 was just a placeholder. They did not say they weren't going to come back for more, and they had asked for more every year. It'll be very difficult. They do have the 10 million in an account already that they can control. They've hired out, I don't know what, both the engineer and everything. I mean, they're going, the county put in a road to the facility. They're saying $750,000, but it was in kind. It was just moving the dirt, but there is a road there. They've started on the internal road, and that internal road, they have a contractor doing it. They've already said it's going to be like $650,000 to put a road in internally. So they are working very hard. They've got plans for the building, but they need that money. South Dakota did one, and I think they spent 20 million, and a lot of it was state funds, not all of it, but that this board is looking for private funds, and they have connection with, they think they'll come up with quite a bit. They were anticipating around 6 million or something, but they're gonna find it. It's a good project. If we pull the plug now, you're gonna have a state shooting complex that won't be very good. So,
Chairman Larson, thank you for that update.
okay.
Senator French.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask Senator Larson, how many private funds do they have in the bank or for this project?
Senator Larson.
In the bank, I don't think they have that much. I'd have to get those dollars from the board to let you know. But we will, let me see if I can get a hold of them. I think they are planning on coming down if needed.
Okay. My question was how much of the 10 million has been committed? You mentioned 650,000 for a road, internal road, and CEO's been selected. So I assume that's being paid out of that 10 million. So if you could, get back to the committee and let us know what's committed out of that 10 million in SIPA, just so we have an idea where you're at.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would anticipate the building's going to take quite a bit, obviously. But if we can get some numbers on the facilities on the outskirts where they're actually doing the shooting, I'll try to see if I can get that.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, could we also get the numbers of local contributions and other contributions? Because we asked for multipliers on all this, and I'm a little with Senator French. I was promised it was 10 million and we won't be back. I stood with them specifically, and they said 10 million will never be back. And that's what I was told. They can say whatever they want, but it's what I was told. And you know, as I've watched this and I've helped on a lot of these other projects, we have 2, 3, 4-time multipliers that are put in. I'd like to know how much the county's putting in, how much the city of Cody's putting in, what local business is putting in. Because South Dakota's, I can tell you, the local contractor paid a huge chunk of that. It's named after him. It's not the South Dakota Shooting Sports Complex. It's and we don't say names here, but it's a big rock company that's around is who donated the big chunk. And I feel very strongly that there
Senator-
needs to be major local contributions to make the thing happen.
Senator Driscoll, I was told the same thing, but I was told by a politician, so I took it with a grain of salt. Senator Larson? No response? Okay. All right, we'll move on. Minority Floor Leader, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure everybody on the tourism board's gratified that they're off the hook on being the spokesman for the shooting sports complex. But I wanted to kind of go back for just a minute. Yeah, James is really, like, thought he was the guy on the hook on this one, but now go back to the promise of the lodging tax. When we passed this, and we did this a few sessions back, the promise was that we would get these 5-year rolling averages of dollars, get the budget where we needed the budget to be, because all the budget has to be authorized by this body. That was specifically put in. While the money is generated outside the general fund, we authorize it. It goes into an account and we authorize its expenditure. That's the way it was set up. That was the deal we made. But the promise was that we get to a point, and this maybe was 10 years out, that money would start to tip back into the general fund for all to use. However, this body and the floors in general saw fit. That was the general plan. Well, there was a little kind of a shift that we maybe some anticipated, but it's kind of come faster than we thought, where groups have come, shooting sports complex, perfectly good, rational thing, come forward and say, hey, we want to get in on this. And the $2 million that we're putting in per year into the funds for, to develop trail systems, to build a fund where we can use the interest off that, like we do a lot of investment vehicles. So the question is, we've got, now we're going to take some and take out a capacity for air capacity purchase agreement. And I think everyone on the board of tourism felt that that was a fair expenditure. But once again, it saves off that day when the money then where we hit that tip point back. Does the board, and you talk with the board, and I know they're all here, and it's like, do you see some mechanism that we should be looking at to try to throttle this back? Because some of us remember that promise and worry that at some point somebody's going to stand up and say, hey, when are we going to start tipping this money back? Or are you guys more comfortable seeing we're just going to take these as they come? I mean, and I know, Dominic, you're new in this, but you're getting the feel for your board. What's your take? What do you think? And anybody who wants to answer.
Before you answer that, Director, I'm just going to opine that I think the legislature also anticipated it taking some time and set aside the reserve project account so that we could spend that. But clearly, based on your examples, we've gone well beyond that. And so your point is well taken. So Director Bravo, if you could respond to that.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Guru, I guess it's an interesting question because, again, as we talked about earlier, as we look at strategy and things change and what we need within the Office of Tourism to be successful, I mean, I think there'll be future budgets where we may have exception requests that talk about the things we talked about earlier. I mean, it's a changing dynamic in technology, marketing changes, international we're trying to bring back. I mean, so all those things play into that. Outside of that, having the mechanism that already shifts that, I think we're going to see that with the 5-year rolling average. So I'm not sure we have the data to say what that looks like. As you said, there are pressures already on this, but I think we very quickly need to drive the bus ourselves. I mean, I think as the industry, we got to drive where I mentioned earlier, where we see those destination development dollars. Now that it's at a scale where that makes sense, is we're kind of behind the 8 ball. I think we're primed to actually do some big picture things for our state. And I think that's what we need to put in place. I think we need to define those a little bit better, working with our local representatives and our partners on a local level, and get that in place would be my suggestion. So we don't always have these addressing us just randomly in space.
Yeah, just
Follow up, Senator.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, because I feel exactly the same way. It was like, I always kind of had this thought in my head that, boy, we'll talk about the extra, the money, the reserve account and how to put money towards these worthy projects, all worthy projects. And never thought I'd ever see a request come that would go into the operating side that I'd start like, no way. And the governor came up the first time out with the first one out that I can't argue it. And so just goes to show you, never say never. But, the air capacity purchase agreement is that important. And so it's worth it, but I still have that concern that we don't even have a firm handle on the 5-year rolling average yet and where we're going yet. Now we're starting to cross that Rubicon. And so as the board, since the board's all here, I really look forward to hearing your thoughts and the industry's thoughts about how we should be addressing that. If there's something that we can do, or maybe trigger points or things that you could help us with. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wouldn't you agree?
Director, I too would welcome a plan. Unlike Senator Driscoll, I wouldn't want to throw a percentage at it and hope for a good return on that, even though you feel like you could get a 10-to-1 return. A plan would go a long way in helping us understand, what kind of investment we should make. And clearly, the good senator brings up a point that we're all working on is getting government spending under control, so we're not dipping into these areas where we didn't anticipate doing so in the past. So I have a couple of questions. I think I've exhausted the committee. So first question I have, and this is somewhat theoretical. You mentioned that you're generating $277 million in revenue. Your budget now is 40 million. Some of that money is pass through. I calculate a couple million in pass through. You said that if you have a plan, it'll likely be a pass through plan where you're trying to invest in certain things that will help the industry. But my calculations show that your administration of that 277 million, based on your budget, would be somewhere between 13.7 and 14.4%. AI, which I don't put a lot of trust in, tells me that an excellent administration percentage would be around 12%. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I'd like to know what your thoughts are, because we've had a discussion today about an anticipation that the revenues would be going down year over year. So if we're setting up expenditures in the administration of that fund, they're pretty well set. And so that percentage will go up if our revenue goes down. So I'd like to know, based on, and maybe this is something more for Ms. Eakins, she's had a little more time there. What should we be spending as a percentage of that money coming in to administer that? Either of you, please.
Well, I guess I'm also, so Mr. Chairman, I guess a clarification on, so you're asking specifically of revenues to spend down on the percentage of like administration of like our overall marketing plan, or?
No, your budget is 40 million.
Yes.
Some of that is passed through, a couple million.
Grants and other things.
Right, right. So of the 277 million, 40 million or 38 million comes in at that 14% roughly. 10 to 12% is usually what an organization should spend on administration. I consider your budget the administration of that. That percentage is going to increase naturally if we have that budget year after year and the revenues go down. So is that a good number? 10%, 12%? And if we're going away from that number, what can we do about that if we got a plan if the revenues continue to drop?
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess just overall, as we try to hit the metrics, and I'll try to answer it the best I can, if I understand your question correctly. So pretty much almost all of our funding is specifically passed through two contracts that do all the things from implementing our marketing plan, our PR components, our global outreach, and then of course down to the local community, like I mentioned, helping a local destination build a strategic plan that then they know where they're going to do, their marketing. So when you look at some of the expenditures specifically for the contracts, it's actually working with marketing agencies, both in state and building these pretty robust programs that then everything for digital content. And like I said, we use every medium you can think of. We do connected TV, radio, you name it. So almost all of that funding. So it's not really administration as much as it is programmatic, specifically to inspire and, as I mentioned, convert visitors to our state. So any, whether it's increase or decrease, directly impacts our reach in that space. So that's what increase or decrease would be. So we probably don't meet the same type of percentage for a normal agency because we are specifically able to ratchet up and on some levels ratchet down. But what you lose is that direct economic impact based on how we do our marketing and our PR and our global outreach in that space.
Fair point. One last question that I have. In our last session, we were working on pay raises for your agency. What is the status of those? My understanding is the pay raises have been taken care of. And how did that happen and where are we set now as far as pay for your employees?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I might toss that over to Director Hibbert as he might be able to answer it more succinctly than I can.
Please, Director Hibbert.
Mr. Chairman, prior to the supplemental, tourism agreed to forestall their compensation increases for a year so that they could work with A&I to have their positions classified in the established methodology with A&I HR. That took a year. We used those statistics and we brought you a supplemental budget. Last year's supplemental budget had those compensation increases included. We all know what transpired with the supplemental. After the supplemental process, we did go in and we did the B11 for that supplemental request. And those compensation increases were provided to that level of statistic that was presented to you in the supplemental through the B11. That's how we facilitated that.
So Director Hibbert, is that now in the standard budget, that B11?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that has been flowed through the Chapter 17 report.
All right, any further questions for this agency? I guess we've exhausted. Thank you for putting up with the conversation about the shooting complex and all that, but thank you for being here and again, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. Appreciate it.
Committee, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll be back for the next agency.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the next agency for your consideration is Agency 98, the guardian ad litem, and Counselor Belcher is the director. I think he's joined by Barb Wallace, who provides the fiscal services to the agency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Joe Belcher. I'm the Director of the Wyoming Office of Guardian Ad Litem. Joining me today to my left is Barb Wallace, our Principal Accountant. Behind us is Roy Horsley with A&I that also supports us, and Kim Scutari Johnson. To her left is the agency's Chief Trial and Appellate Counsel. I know you're all busy today and have a lot of people to see, and I'll be as brief as possible, and I'll obviously, and well, I appreciate that. And so by way of review for you all, the Wyoming Office of Guardian ad litem provides high quality legal representation to the juveniles across the state of Wyoming in 22 of our 23 counties who are involved in court-appointed abuse and neglect cases, children need a supervision matters, delinquency proceedings, termination of parental rights cases, and related appeals that come out of those cases. Our attorney GL caseloads vary by county, from county to county, but during the calendar year 2025, our office represented more than 2,300 juveniles involved in our child welfare juvenile system. On a daily basis, we actively represent approximately 1,200 children involved in the juvenile welfare system. Our agency is a small agency. We have 24 attorney guardian ad litems, including 7 state attorney guardian ad litems, including myself, and 17 contract attorney guardian ad litems that assist us around the state. And within our agency, we also have 2 state paralegals, office manager positions. And so we are a small but mighty agency. I think we do yeoman's work around the state and representing children that find themselves in really difficult situations. And we're very proud of the work that we do and the legal service and representation we give to our clients. We have pretty simple budget for you today, and I can get to we basically just have one exception request for you today, and you can find that on page 13 of our budget book. And so when our agency was housed within the Office of the State Public Defender, we had an in-house accounting analyst that worked with us. And as we moved out of the Office of Public Defender to be our own individual state agency, we lost that person. And so in deciding how we're going to fill that position, I met with the governor's office, and looking at all our options, we decided to move that position over to A&I, which they provided that services for us. Now, we thought it'd be more efficient, more expertise in matters that would benefit the agency in far as fiscal and budget management. And so our exception here today is to fully officially move that position over to Barb's office. And so that is our exception request for the committee today. And that amount is $189,415, and again, for the 2027-28 biennium. And so again, pretty simple, small budget, small request today. And so that's what we have for you today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Thank you for being with us. Just curious here, my understanding is that we are able to capture a 25% local match. Question one is, could you clarify, is that 20 or 25%? And then by moving this position over to A&I, are we losing out on that ability to leverage that local match? And maybe this is a question for Director Hibbard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, typically these moves would be what we'd call a mirror. In this, you'll see that the Guardian Litem is giving up the $189,000, and they have mathematically done it correctly. 80% general fund and 20% local. Now, we don't cost allocate to local governments, so there's no way for us to recover that. In A&I's budget, you'll see that they're asking for the whole $189,415 in general fund. That misses out upon that local match. Now, there's ways to handle that. A direct way would only provide A&I the percentage of it. I don't know that I like that so much. Another methodology would maybe to footnote it that the work that A&I does, because they may actually be doing this for less amount of money, the idea is that they probably will. Overall, the total amount of money will be reduced. But if we had a footnote that would say that A&I would bill the local government their share of their direct billings, then we would ensure that that relationship stood strong.
Thank you, Director Hibbert. I really like that approach so that we aren't losing out on that local match, and wondering if staff could just make a note for that. Thank you so much.
Chairman Bear, on a daily basis, open cases that we have going on today, if we count all the cases that we have today, would be around approximately 1,200. Over the course of the year, we open and close cases that reach up into the 2,200 area. But on an average a day, we're looking at that number of kids in the system that we represent.
Just recently, the Trump administration came out, pointed out many states, 39, were improperly taking Medicaid plus funds from foster care and keeping those in the funds. We found out just part of that. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Looking to take care of the kids. That's why I'm asking you to stop in that practice. Be great.
Thank you, Chairman Bear. I knew how the department kind of pulled those funds and where they kind of put them. The whole mechanism of how the department did that. I were not privy to that, but certainly, especially with those older juveniles that are in the system that are approaching either not a permanency home, but are quote unquote sort of aging out through the system. Our guardian limes make sure that when their case is closed, that they have their monies and their funds that were captured by the states. And so we do take into that account, and we will make sure that, we have the ability to work with the Department of Family Services and make sure those kids are coming out of the system or when they even go back from foster care into their home, that they have appropriate funds for them.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. If I heard you right, I heard 22 of 23 counties. If that's correct, what county is left out and why?
Director?
Chairman Bear, Representative Kindergraff, Goshen County is our lone county that we do not provide services to. As to why, I don't know. They have never opted into the program. They seem to handle things in-house. I have reached out to them this last year about coming in and utilizing our services. There was talk that they wanted to do that. I don't know why they ended up not doing that. They have just, there are people in their county that do that, that they choose to use, and they choose not to utilize their services.
Well, I would like to follow up on that. Just, do you get any complaints from that county at all?
Chairman Bear, as far as, not really, no. I have not received any complaint by a child that was a client of their guardian ad litem, nor parents or anything like that. So in the past, I will say we have done their termination work and their appeals work that has come out of that county sort of gratis, that we have done that. The reason it kind of came a little bit on our radar is that they had a termination and appeal that came out of Goshen County that we just at that time could not handle because we just didn't have the manpower or the hours to do it. And so I had to kick it back to their county attorney and their guardian ad litem to do. But I'm always willing to have that conversation to provide our services to their county, and would welcome that.
Do you know what the outcome of that case was?
Do we know what happened with that termination and that appeal? The appeal was affirmed, and I think that termination, I'm not sure what the status of that was. The termination, I don't know what happened to that case, so.
Okay. Representative Smith.
All right, thank you. So being from Goshen County and looking at your 900 special series, I do see an attorney there that is providing services through your office. Is that correct?
Chairman Bear, Representative Smith, yes, our guardian ad litem who provides services to Platte County, Niobrara County, and Commerce County resides in Goshen County, but she does not provide Goshen County guardian ad litem work.
Okay.
Follow up? Further questions? Comments? Okay, you were right. It was a very simple budget request, and we appreciate your being here.
Thank you very much.
Is there any closing statement you'd like to make?
No, I appreciate you having us here, and again, thank you for all that you do and for our agency and the kids around the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hibbert.
Mr. Chairman, if I may go back to the state parks and the conversation that we had about federal grants. We have a brief update. We have already been engaged. The National Endowment of Arts has awarded funding, and they will continue to do so. National Endowment of Humanities, they'll be providing grant. And also there's $150 million appropriation from the Department of Interior Park Services from the One Beautiful Bill that we are targeting as well. That's just the work that we already done, but we are going to do a TA, technical service request, deep dive to position ourselves for applying for these grants. What that means is that we have weekly and bi-weekly meetings with all of our constituents across the state of Wyoming. We will be briefing them. We will be creating a platform that accelerates the grant process and gets it to a position where we can be successful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Director Hibbert, and are you anticipating that work being for political subdivisions or for the state? Any particular agencies?
Mr. Chairman, this will be for the entire state of Wyoming. Absolutely. And again, the GMO's focus is primarily to help the local governments with their activities. We also help the state governments, obviously, but this initiative will be spread out across the state of Wyoming. And it's really important that we get on top of that. Obviously, we already are, but we want to get the deep dive, but we want to get the platform set up there where we get our grants written in the fashion that we're going to be more attractive and get rewarded those grants. That's the whole idea behind the Grants Management Office, is to be successful. And then naturally, that's the 20% effort. The other thing is 80% of this effort is make sure that we put in place all the requirements for reporting for all the local governments and the state agencies.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Miss Elizabeth, Miss Martinell, could you go
Yes,
ahead and announce where we're going next?
Mr. Chairman, the next agency for your consideration is Agency 041, Fire Prevention and Electrical Safety. And our current director, Byron, is here today for you.
Director Byron, thank you for being here. Director Matthews, I think is the right way to say that, wouldn't it be? Please introduce yourself to the public and to the committee and proceed with your opening statement.
Good morning, committee. Byron Matthews. I'm the Director of Fire Prevention and Electrical Safety. Pleasure to join you this morning and talk about our budget and our requests that we have submitted.
So what we've been doing is having you go through the exception requests first, and then we can go to general questions if the committee has any after that. And TRP requests, we've really gone over those with ETS, so really no need for you to spend time on those. So if you're ready to proceed, we'll go ahead and get into your exception.
I am, sir. Thank you. So the first request that we have is for equipment and personal protection equipment for our training. So our training section that operates out of Riverton, we operate a fire academy. We provide all state level training, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, hazardous materials, live fire, roofs, all that training comes out of that facility. And that $254,000 that we asked for there is to update our turnouts, which is the protective outer gear that the firefighters wear. That would be equipping our trainers. A lot of that equipment we have is reaching outdated. It gives us the opportunity today with the byproducts of combustion and smoke. The newer turnouts are they're just better equipment. Additionally, in that request, there was loose equipment to include nozzles, hoses, and radio communications. So that $254,000 would allow us to update that group to continue to improve the level of training that we provide to our Wyoming Fire Service.
Okay. Vice Chairman Pendergraft, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you. I'm looking at this as an exception report, and it just seems odd to me to see something that to me would be a normal expenditure, normal ongoing. It ought to be just part of the regular budget. We've got to replace this stuff. Did something special happen to put you farther behind? Can you enlighten me a little bit?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, yeah. So what has happened over time is the Riverton office in the training division, I hate that word division, so I struggle not saying it. That unit and section up there has fallen behind the times. We've spent a lot of time and money on props and the drill grounds and those things. And we haven't had the opportunity to budget and put those turnouts, the radios and that update of that equipment into the reoccurring budget. So as it shows today, the exception request, it's just clearly outlining these are things that we have found money to buy previously, but this is something putting it in there so we get on a cycle where we're not doing that in the essence of I'd like to be doing these things. So we're buying them in 5-year increments, right? We buy half the team this 5 and then the following 5 so that it's not such a huge request and we get it functioning as it should be.
Well,
Mr. Co-Chair, when will that be? When will you have it up to speed and everything? So we're up to speed currently. This would just be an update of that equipment, right? So what we're doing now is for lack of a better description, some of that turnout equipment gets recycled. Our radio equipment has reached the point of where it's no longer supported by our friends that manufacture radios. So what we're doing there is we're partnering with our fire districts, partnering with other entities that come in to use that at communications. We're just not equipped to have it standalone, everything that we need. So when we're doing those, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I skipped right through that to answer that question.
It's okay.
So we're skipping through that partnering with our local entities to accomplish that goal. So we're not accomplishing the goal. We're just not as well equipped as I'd like us to be.
Okay. Other questions? So Director, I see that the chief executive backed out that 254,000, but he left 14,000. So where does this sit now with the governor's recommendation?
So the 254 wasn't recommended by the executive branch. The 14, I was just going to talk about, and if you're good, I'll go ahead and elaborate on that. So, Mr. Chair, that 14,000 is for our fire investive equipment and the support of our K9. So a K9.
K9?
Yes, I'm sorry. So year and a half ago, we had the opportunity to partner with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They provided us with a field trained K9 and trained our handler to equip us with one of the top units for accelerant detection in fire investigations. So that 14,000 that the governor did recommend is in support of the K9. Obviously, we have some associated costs, making sure we're taking care of Kyoto and the supplements that he needs. And additionally, as we go out and we do that work, we take samples. Those samples from a fire scene, one, verify that the dog is certified in doing what it needs to be doing. And two, it gives us the ability, in the event there is a crime to prosecute, we have the evidence and the ability to do so. And as I talk about that certification, we're recertifying both Handler, Cywick, and Kyoto annually. So we're verifying those skills through the national standard and the ATF annually. So that's part of that additional funds there.
Okay. This dog that and trainer or handler, do you have a plan if this dog comes to the end of life and it's time to go on, or are you going to go back to the people who donated this one?
Mr. Chairman, the plan that currently is, now that we're in the ATF program, as Kyoto ages out at that 7-year mark, we would be eligible, assuming the program still exists, we would be eligible for replacement. So that would be our goal. Our friends to the south and our friends to the east have had that ability, and they continue. So they've been through one service life and moving on to a second K9. So that is the goal, that we keep that top resource in the state, because it is very important and it makes us much better at what we do, and it provides a huge level of support to our local jurisdictions.
Okay. This committee will be presenting this on the floor, and we will have to answer questions about the K9, the $14,000, and the fire investigation. And so what kind of stories can we share with the body and you share with the public right now, where this K9 has been put to use and accomplished something?
Mr. Chair, thank you. What a wonderful opportunity. So one of the Kyoto will alert in a 6-acre pasture to 1 drop of an accelerant. Where that became important in the great state of Wyoming is we had some fires that occurred off of I-25 in the northern portion of the state. Kyoto alerted 8 times in those pastures to what potentially is an intentionally set circumstance. Obviously, to that extent, I can't elaborate on that because we're still working through those cases. But what Kyoto is doing is bringing that whole level that, boy, this doesn't necessarily look right, but we have a resource that can work that field in short order. Kyoto and Handler Cywick were up there about half a day, so an afternoon, and had that accomplished. Most recently, we had a fire in Green River that resulted in a fatality. Our agency policy is we send Kyoto out with Handler Cywick to all of those calls to verify that something didn't happen, something wasn't missed by the local jurisdiction, and provide that additional closure and assistance to those locals. So yesterday, Kyoto and Handler and our investigation unit leader were all in Casper and met with Rotary for lunch. Kyoto is a ham. He just like any typical lab, you bring him into the room, everybody wants to see the lab. And the problem is you got to keep him out of the garbage can. So he is, that's his first, he won't alert to the garbage can, but the first place he goes to look is the garbage can. But that being said, he is a food-driven canine, meaning that if he doesn't work, he doesn't eat. So part of these things we talk about, right, is the fun side of that is he's working every day. We're bringing him out on multiple fires. And a lot, you know, it's somewhat of the novelty of the canine currently that we see a lot more fires. Just because the opportunity, once a department sees that resource, they're like, hey, this is something really great that we can bring in and verify and gather that information. And it's good for us to get more experience in putting Kyoto out there. As we move forward, obviously there'll be some prosecution of some crimes because currently, obviously, not every fire occurs outside of incendiary. So we'll have those prosecutions, but this time we don't have that. But we've got a handful of cases. I don't have an exact number off the top of my head, but we've had a handful of cases that the investigation unit and the K9 are working. We did a fire outside of Worland in a barn that was completely unwitnessed, all the things, right? It was there last night and they came in the morning, it was gone. So we're brought Kyoto out and worked through that entire case and worked with our investigation unit to help determine the series of events and some of the things that transpired there. So thank you for that opportunity.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thanks for being with us. Could you tell me, how do you spell Kyoto? Because if I get asked, I'm like, I don't know how to spell it. Could you give me the spelling?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, Kyoto is Kyoto.
Like,
very cute blonde. He, and like I say, absolute ham. Get an opportunity, you're in Riverton, or we can set something up, please reach out. We're happy to, you know, bring him out in the community. Eric and Kyoto are a great team. So thank you.
Representative Harold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for being here. And I love that we are using, I wouldn't say technology like this, but tools like this, right? Can you just bring it down to layman terms? So let's say we had a fire that started in a pasture and you're like, this shouldn't have like something's off, right? So let's say that pasture's already burned down. You could bring Kyoto, right, in and say, okay, let them loose and say, wait a second, we've got an accelerant, say gasoline that was poured right here and ignited. This is point of combustion. Obviously, all of that gasoline's burned off, but it leaves a scent trace that the dog grabs, and you can sit there and say, hey, we're in the middle of a field, that something nefarious happened here or something man-driven. Am I right in that? Am I gathering that correctly?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Representative. Yeah, so to really bring it down, technology in a lot of ways. One, we're using technology to determine what were the contributing factors of the fire, right? If there was no lightning, there was no reason that fire should have started in that pasture or that space.
Mm-hmm.
We need to figure out what's next, right? So we bring out our four-legged friend who does have technology in his nose that we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And work that area, right? It could be gasoline, kerosene, any one of those things. Why is it there?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So one, the Kyoto alerts, we flag that spot. We go through, we may flag 3 or 4 other spots. May that be the only spot. Then you have to come in and verify the sample, which we send to a lab, verify that it is whatever product, medium distillate, petroleum distillate. And then we start to work backwards of, okay, what did we find? What didn't we have? And that's the importance of that investigation unit and the support that they provide, is that team then gets into the real meat and potatoes of what occurred in that. And whether it's pulling the technology of the cameras that may be in the area, talking to the ranchers, talking to people that were on the highway, talking to that reporting party that said, hey, we saw this fire start. So it is all of those things combined that gives us that tool. And it also gives us the closure, right? That closure is extremely important, that we know what is causing those fires. Because from the standpoint of our position as the agency, right? If I know what caused the fire and we can find a prevention, we need to do that. And, you know, one of the things we talk about is, you know, home smoking and oxygen related fires in the home, right? That was our #1 fatality in our great state, right? So our citizens were succumbing to that. So we actually partnered with the group and we came out and now have a device that can be installed in line that stops the flow of oxygen, which should help keep those fires at a smaller nature. Obviously, working smoke alarms and carbon monoxide are key indicators in that, but all of that technology, all of those things play back in that origin and cause of the fire so that we, if it's preventable, we can do it. And if it's something that is, whether it's nefarious or criminal, we can catch that person and prevent that moving forward.
Thank you.
All right. Representative Sherwood and then Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for, giving us something fun to talk about today in the context of fire. So maybe not. Could you help remind the committee of the fees that you charge? That's question one. Question two is, do those fees actually cover the cost that you incur in terms of staff time, fuel, travel? And just give us a little reminder of that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Representative, as we talk about fees, the agency collects fees on plan reviews for projects that aren't under local jurisdiction. We collect electrical licensing fees and those related inspection fees. As we look at those fees, no, they don't cover the cost of us doing business. We did 2 sessions ago have the opportunity that working with this group and the legislature, we were able to change the split. So that split in fees used to be 60-40. Now it's 95-5. So 60 went to the general fund, 40 to the agency. Now we're at 95-5. So 95 goes to the agency, 5 goes to the general fund. That helps us allow to have additional electrical inspectors in the field and offset some of those costs, right? We're not covering those costs, but we're offsetting those costs. And by doing that, that gives us that good opportunity that we continue to ensure that those permits and inspections and licensing are up to par based on the standards, and that we're out ensuring the public is getting the product that they applied for, right? So you get an electrical permit, they come out, they ensure that the work that the electrician or whoever's doing that work does meet the standards. So those fees haven't been updated in a long time. We have discussed them with the legislature. The temperament of the legislature at both those times was not to address those fees. And I understand that, but it is, as we look at retention and we look at employees, having that ability and having those funds come back into the agency does help us with recruitment and retention. I am happy to say that we're in a good circumstance today. At the risk of saying it, we're fully staffed, which is really important. Hiring electricians and chief electrical inspectors, it's tough, right? Local jurisdiction, boy, easy for me to say today. Local jurisdictions, that's what I was trying to say, have that same hurdle. One thing we're up against, right, is local government has a little more ability and is more agile with those wages. So it's hard for us to compete. We did recently lose one of our positions to another city in the great state of Wyoming. So that being said, it is difficult, but appreciate the conversation on fees.
All right. Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm at page 27 on your budget book. And I see the beginning balance at 1.3 million. And it drops to 625,000. And then I see projected ending balances going from 1.3 billion to 280,000. That is not a hopeful projection. Please let me know what is happening. What's going on?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, so those projections are based on today's numbers, meaning that we don't know what the growth is going to be on those fees. So it's difficult for us to forecast forward. So it does look grim. I will make no qualm about that. The assumption is that construction will continue, permitting will continue, electrical licensing will continue to increase. But at some point we will hit a threshold where those numbers aren't increasing. And that is where a conversation on fees does become something that we probably need to have to make a determination on what are the fees in line with those that surround us, and clearly are the fees that we charge fair for everyone involved.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last session, I ran House Bill 31, passed the House, did not get introduced in the Senate, but it was about school safety. And one of the provisions in that bill said not later than July 1st of 2025, the state fire marshal shall provide the board of trustees in each school district with a list of door securement devices appropriate to be utilized in K-12 public school buildings. Obviously, we're trying to look at fire safety, but we're also saying if we have an active shooter, we need some way to barricade those doors. I was assured at the end of last session that the fire marshal was working on that I would be hearing something. I still haven't heard anything. Are you hearing anything? Can you give me any information? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Representative, thank you. Yes, absolutely, we can address that. So to be honest, that process was a little more involved than what even I had anticipated to make sure that we got a good inclusive list. So we partnered with the Builders Hardware Manufacturers Association, and I had to look at my note to make sure that I get it correct. But partnering with that group, we were able to assemble all of that manufactured hardware that meets the requirements of the code and is listed and approved for that work. So we have that list. We've now partnered with our friends at State Construction because there's a link there to the construction and funding. So working with Director McComey and his staff, I anticipate we're going to have that. I want to say soon. I don't want to speak on Director McComey's behalf because obviously he's got a very full plate with state construction, obviously during this time of year. But to your point, yeah, I can't make it up. It was a more difficult task than what was initially anticipated to get that list. But now we do have it. We have it in-house. We're getting the letter firmed up and getting those funding options so that when the list does go out, there is a source behind that to say, hey, if we want to get this device, this is how we can fund that device for that local district and help them get across the finish line and be successful. So in process, I can't necessarily define soon, but I can assure you, very good work in progress, and we're a lot closer today than we have been in a long time to getting that done.
Other questions? Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for being here. I have a couple questions on review of construction of buildings, plans and stuff. It states in here that the purpose is to ensure public buildings adhere to all applicable minimum requirements. So if a private individual or a person is building a building that is being used by the public, I would guess that's what you're referring to.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Senator, that is correct, right? So it could be a privately held building for public use, whether that be an assembly, potentially a campground, some of those things, right? There are certain provisions that the code clearly outlines those requirements that where that becomes a public building. You could construct a building that is solely your use. And that isn't a public building.
Okay.
And therefore wouldn't be subject to those provisions.
Follow up?
Please.
I have a couple, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I see on page 17, it says 100% of all plan review fees collected are directly deposited into the general fund. I think I had heard earlier that some fees go back to your department.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Senator, those are electrical fees that come back. That is the 95-5 split. So yes, sir. Plan review fees are currently all coming to the general fund.
Okay. Go
ahead.
I have an individual that thinks that the fees charged were pretty high. Obviously, most people might think that, but their fees were even higher than the architect or whoever designed it, that sort of thing. So where do your fees come from? When I looked into it, it looked like you were pulling from some federal documents or something that may have changed in the last 5 years?
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Senator, I'd like to go offline about the fees in your specific instance so we can get down to the bottom and get you a good answer on that. But fees are established under the code set. So the International Code Council is the code set that is widely accepted for establishing what construction costs are. Now, they are evaluated every 6 months. So in the event, so right now, that number could, and I haven't looked at the building index, right? That number could be higher than it was end of last year. This January, it could be lower. If it is, we'll adjust those accordingly to that index, and then we'll adjust it again in July to what those costs are per square foot. So that being said, sometimes it does feel like that is unfair, because we might determine that if I was going to build a project and I had this much sweat equity in that project and had a budget of 250,000, I would make a strong argument that it's only going to cost 250,000. However, the square footage based on the construction costs that level that playing field for everyone the same. So if you don't hire a contractor in those things, it levels that playing field so we have one charge per square foot.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, so is there a requirement that we follow those fee schedules federally, or is it the state that can decide that? Could those be lowered?
Mr. Chairman.
Director.
Senator, that we adopt that through the council, and so the fire council, and by rule. So we could visit that. So the answer, the short, very short answer to this without me running it out is yes, we can discuss fees.
Well,
I can do that offline if that's all right.
yes. Okay. Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman. I've lived through a bunch of your guys' stuff, and first question, do we have to follow the building codes? Wyoming can create exemptions, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman.
Please, Director.
Senator, yes, we can. So there are circumstances where a specific code ban can be created for, whether it be a state or a jurisdiction. Typically what we experience is we establish a code for a specific reason, right? To address a local concern and or maybe it's wind or snow load, right? That may need to be different in one portion of the state than the other.
Thank you. Follow up.
Follow up, go ahead.
I'm more in a little different area. I became a parent. You were talking, we just did a renovation and found out you can't have anybody living upstairs in any building that doesn't have a sprinkler system. And so I've started looking around the towns everywhere, and the upper floors are all empty in all these buildings because they're old buildings and they don't meet any of the codes. Is there a way we could create an exemption so if the people that lived upstairs knew they were living in a deal that wasn't a sprinkled building, that we could actually use them? When you go through downtown Cheyenne here, virtually all the upper floors are empty in these buildings because nobody can live in them. And is there a way for us to create an exemption for that?
Go ahead, Director.
Mr. Chairman, today there is an opportunity to discuss exemptions. One of the things I would emphasize is within the code there is a alternative means and materials. So so currently there is an option that we have out there to address that. It is getting somewhat creative in how you look at the code and what the intent of that code is, right? To your point, how could we create that separation? And there are options out there. One of the things we experienced looking at Representative Sherwood is working with Wyoming Main Street. There are programs and there have been opportunities in downtowns that we did get the upstairs developed. And it took a cooperative and a collaboration to get through the code and get those things accomplished. But there is an ability to get that done. Yes, sir.
Follow up.
Please.
So how do we do it in rural areas? I just built one and they literally with us said, look, you can't have a manager's quarters upstairs in your building, brand new building, building it new. They said, if you put any sleeping quarters upstairs, you sprinkle your building. And for us, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I've got no buildings next to me. It's a logical spot for my manager to be able to spend a night. And I'm told I have to do a sprinkler system if we're going to do it. And I thought it's kind of interesting. Brand new construction. My house is 2 stories. I live in the upper story of it. I don't have much problem with fire alarms figuring out how to get out of it if it's done. Why are we doing these type of things?
Mr. Chairman. Senator, the primary function of all of our codes, whether it be talking on the school safety, talking on door locks, talking on the separation of business from residential, is to ensure that level of life safety. To your point, you're absolutely correct. You live in a 2-story home that isn't sprinkled. I live in a house that is upstairs and a basement downstairs. It is fully sprinkled. And I am in a rural situation east of town here, about 7 miles. That's not to say that has to be the way we do it. There are certainly opportunities, and I don't have the specifics of your exact project. Obviously, I was aware of your project, but not in down far enough. But I think there's opportunities, and that is no different than we talk about, the fee discussion is we really need to get down to the specifics and get down in and have good conversations about what opportunities are out there to make people successful, to bring more money in and keep people moving forward. Because without additional taxpayers, without additional folks in our great state doing things, right, we're all going to fail. So it is important that we set people up to be successful and we make sure that those buildings are safe.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm not looking at mine specific just because I know about it. I started looking at other, and it really is, particularly in rural areas, I think it's very impressive. We're not building any new businesses because the costs are unbelievable. And I'm a believer that, it's a little back to the old caravan emptor. As long as you're warned that it doesn't meet code, you ought to be able to go ahead and do it. I had a business in bags. I knew that basically they couldn't do anything with their business because they stopped them over it. And I'm frustrated by that. We're in a state that we struggle to bring new business into rural areas, yet you won't see a kitchen go into a town of 300 people again with a fryer in it because the costs are too high. And part of it to me is understanding what the risks are, not trying to save me from myself. And I literally look and I look at your sprinkled buildings in Wyoming, and how many of them go off a year, and how many lives do you think we're saving doing it, particularly in the rural areas? Because I'm not seeing it.
Director?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, any life we save is the win. And regardless of where that life that we save is a win. We have most recently, right, just this week, that fatality in Green River, not knowing the circumstances, not having any of the details of that investigation in front of us. If that life could have been saved, that's a life we should have saved. And that is what our group does. My entire career has been protecting communities and ensuring people are safe. And how do we find a way that is business friendly and continues to make us successful is extremely important, but saving those lives is also important, sir.
Follow-up?
Probably a comment I shouldn't make. So speed limit should be 35 then, so we can save lives? This is really the type of example that I see is, do we build all one-story houses? And to me, I really believe, and I'm a huge believer in saving lives. But I'm also a believer in human responsibility, that if a place looks like a fire trap, it ought to be up to me. And if it makes it where it's unaffordable when you do it, and we're really getting there. The cost of regulation and building, I can tell you, it's similar to what Senator Larson said. We're required to use all Wyoming engineering firms to do it. They got to meet all your codes. And then we go through code review, and it's driving costs unbelievably in these deals. And, the truth is, I look at our business and what we did, and once again, it's personally to me, we'd built it to the exact same codes, less the fire door that cost us $15,000. That's in the middle of a business that's got 8 or 9 doors out of it and windows. We'd have done it exactly the same, and it would have been probably $80,000 to $100,000 less because of engineering and code costs. That's frustrating to somebody like me. My business was built in the 1950s. It's exempt from most of them. It's just stunning what it costs and drives costs. Doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Wouldn't you agree, Director?
Well, you can divide it because there's answers. Thank you.
I'm going to give him a moment.
I appreciate the dialogue, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the dialogue. Appreciate, the speed limit question. I can't speak to that. That's outside of my scope. But I did take a note that we look at those engineering and architectural fees and look at where we are on the plan review fee, because there is a correlation there, and I do see that, and I think it certainly warrants the conversation, and it certainly warrants the look.
Mr. Chairman, just for the public and who's there. I'm not asking for anything different. This is one of the really hard deals with the city senator is ours is basically done, and it's not asking for something to change for us. It's looking down the road from a personal experience, and it's hard because I can tell you, you know, we've been, as you know, we've been building swimming pools and adding on to businesses, and it gives you a firsthand experience that you experience what happens to the developers that build these projects. So for me, I want to make sure everyone understands that I'm not out here trying to change rules so I can do something different. I want it so the next guy that does it isn't frustrated, because part of it, you guys get the brunt of it. Your local inspector, when he comes out, it's usually not you. I never called you once when we went through the deal, but your local inspector takes the brunt of the guy that's upset on the site. And I feel for those guys. They're doing their job. And by the way, you've got a very professional staff that's good. They were wonderful to work with. They understand the rules and they understand where they can help us ease them, as you've said, and also where they have to be tough. And so that end, I just want to make sure everyone understood is it's hard as a business person that, you know, we hire people and do stuff. When you get into driving costs, it's a frustration, and it's hard not to lash out on it. And me is, how do we make it where it's easier for you folks to do the right thing? And we do. We don't want people to die in fires, and we don't want them electrocuted. And, you know, I can tell you on mine, once again, my business was exempt. We spent double-digit thousands of dollars to bring our electrical up to code because it had been done by previous owners wrong. It did not meet code. The electricians, when they came in, said, look, you're going to not have any insurance money if it burns down because you don't meet code anywhere. And it's pretty easy to see. So thank you.
Senator Larson and then Senator Brew.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I hate to keep beating up on this, but the fees are just really tough on people to even want to build a building. If these dollars are going to the general fund, that's probably a good thing for the state, but it's not that great for the person building the building. And sometimes they just don't build. They go, let's go to another state. But I would like to visit with you, and you said that maybe something could be done. It's the commission. Now, is there a board or what? Can you explain that?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Senator, so the council I reference is a council on fire prevention, and then we have the electrical board. So we have two entities that establish, obviously we have a fire and construction side, and then we have the electrical side. So the fire council sees that construction and building inspection and that side of the house. Those fees also cross over into the electrical side of the house, so the council would also be involved. Excuse me, electrical board, fire council. I'll get it right, I promise. But those are the conversations to have, and I welcome the conversation of, you know, where are we? What does it look like? Are the fees in line? Are the fees too much? And to your point, I get it, and to the senator's point earlier, right? I don't know what's broken if we don't talk about it, and that is important, and that I appreciate the conversation, right? It's not about changing it for one specific person, right? If it's not working, I can't work on it if I don't know it. So I do appreciate the conversation, and I do welcome, let's talk about fees, let's talk about those things and see what it looks like, because I think there is an opportunity to see what we're up against and see where it fits in the whole picture. I think that's important.
Okay. Senator Grew.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We go through this conversation every year, and we had a regulatory reduction task force. You were on it. I was on it. We tried to, spearhead these things. But what I get is, it sounds like when you're talking about what your experience was working with the folks over in Albany County, that you were able to put together some sort of program to make that work where they could habitate upper stories of buildings without necessarily having to sprinkle. Housing is such a shortage in the state. I guess what I would task you for on this one is to say, let's just not wait until next year and have this discussion all over again when we sit here and then write down notes and say, hey, we need to talk about that. I'd like to see a report, an actionable plan, what you did in with Albany County, and how you think you could replicate it in small towns to get at some of the problems that my two colleagues here are talking about. Actionable plans. So when someone walks in, see, I heard you say, and I've heard you say this before many times, that you want to work with folks. And somehow there's a disconnect between what you say here and what happens out there in the field. And so what happens is folks like us get calls that are absolute horror stories about something that when we talk to you about says, hey, we can work this through. So what I'd like to see is some sort of action plan from your department about how we can bridge that going forward. And, I'm not necessarily saying let's figure out a way to spend a bunch of money because that's not what I'm talking about. Because it seems like it's worked without it. So that's what I want to see. It's just a report. Doesn't have to be a big thing. But whatever you did working with some folks does work. So we want to just replicate it. So that's all. That'd be my challenge to you, Mr. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair. Senator, I want 2 points of clarification on the first. I did pick on Representative Sherwood. The community we were actually in partnering with Wyoming, Main Street was up north portions of Wyoming, so it wasn't specifically in Albany County. But it doesn't matter. The outcome didn't matter. The other clarity I want to provide is sometimes, as we experienced in our regulatory reduction work, is we run into challenges locally that I can't influence. I can provide a lot of knowledge and I can certainly work diligently to make the customer successful. But sometimes we wind up in a local jurisdictional situation that we have challenges with. That doesn't stop us from continuing to move forward on this and welcome the opportunity, just with some caveat that, could be some challenging sideboards.
Okay, further questions? Representative Sherwood.
Thank you. Thank you, committee, for this conversation. I will volunteer to help if it is an action plan that we work towards. Just wanted to call out that another nuance of the work of the Wyoming Business Council in terms of regulatory reduction has helped in Albany County, taking the collaborative approach of our director, looking at our rules and regulations, working with local businesses, activating space in our historic downtown to get more people living downtown and working downtown. So happy to share that knowledge, but just wanted to also give a shout out to when there is a regulation at the local level that is impeding this kind of work, the Wyoming Business Council is helping communities navigate that. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think there was a question there.
If I may,
Please,
Mr. Chair.
go ahead, Boyd.
I want to thank the committee for the great dialogue, and I also I appreciate the great things you say about our staff that are out doing the work and doing that. And to your point, you're right. You don't see me out in the field. You see those great people doing that work, and thank you for acknowledging that. I cannot thank you enough for acknowledging the great people that are out doing those jobs for the state of Wyoming every day. So thank you for that acknowledgement.
Okay. I have one question myself. It's along these same lines. First of all, you had talked about your fire investigation. What's an appropriate amount of time from the point you guys first show up on scene till your investigation is typically closed for prosecution?
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
I'd like to,
very-
I'd really like to tell you that it was 15 minutes or 15 years. Obviously 15 years is outside that realm, but every case, every circumstance is unique. It could, in the example of a fire that occurred in this community, it took us over 9 months from the time that we wrapped up the actual dirty work, meaning we were in the field, wrapping up, getting all the reports written. It was 9 months before we presented the case for prosecution. So it could be fairly short order, straightforward, right? We might be a couple of weeks, maybe a month. On the long end, we could be a year, 18 months, 2 years, depending on the elaborates of the investigation and the needs to help the prosecution across the finish line.
Okay, thank you for that. Glad to see you're fully staffed. Back to that point, I've heard several complaints over the years about permitting for net metering for solar. It has to go through your office because it's out in the county. And so what's your turnaround time now that you're fully staffed on those permits.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't look this morning, but coming into the holiday, our turnaround was less than 7 days.
7 days.
So by statute, we're at 21. I'm unaware of any time that we've bumped up against that 21-day deadline. But like I say, coming into the holiday, I knew we're on a 7-day turnaround. So from the time you submitted to your permit to construct and move forward, less than 7 days.
Thank you. All right. With no further questions, I think we'll wrap that up and appreciate you being here.
Great. Thank you all.
Okay. All right, Director Richards.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the next agency for your consideration is the Gaming Commission. Unfortunately, they are en route from Casper. So we have, one moment. You were en route. So the Department of Administration and Information has graciously accepted to be slot in for their callback. I believe there were a couple of questions even related yesterday. For example, when CIO Kleins was present, as well as previously Director Shannon with the Department of Corrections, there were questions about what happens to the computer equipment that gets wiped and is put up for surplus. And I believe Director Bach is here to address those and any other questions the committee may have.
Okay. Director Bach, please come forward. Thank you for coming back today. Appreciate your filling in short order.
No problem. Thank you very much. I brought staff, obviously, that get in the weeds a little further than I do. My name is Patricia Bach. I am the Director of A&I, and we're here for a callback. My understanding is that there's some questions on the surplus property computer that came up yesterday, and we have that information for you. I'm going to ask Andrew Coleman to come up. He's walking in the door right now.
All right.
And if you, oh, sorry.
I know Representative Harrelson was one of the ones asking that question, so hopefully he'll make it back in, but I think a few other people asked that question, so go ahead and proceed.
And Chairman Bear, I think that we understood what the question was based on the testimony yesterday, so I think we have the information for you.
Okay.
And I'll let Administrator Coleman talk about that. He supervises the surplus property.
Mr. Coleman, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the question was how much we're making from the computer surpluses. In the fiscal year 2020 or biennial year for 2024, we made, sorry. $111,980 for those 2 years. That was for fiscal year 23-24. I apologize. For 21-22, it was 181,366, and budget fiscal year 19 and 20 was 103,490.
Okay. Follow-up questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Harrelson.
Thank you. So thank you guys for coming back with that information. We appreciate it. So just to clarify, this would be hardware predominantly in the computer, monitor, keyboard realm, correct? Or does this extend beyond that into other things? Kind of, can you give me maybe a shopping list of what we're talking about on this public auction funding?
Chairman Bear, Representative Harrelson, what happens is the computers come in once, you've been talking about TRP for months now. So when they come into surplus, the hard drive is destroyed. And so what's left is the case and the guts of the computer. So that's essentially, we just make sure that the hard drive's destroyed, and then we usually put them into lots. We have 4 or 5 different computers into lots, and then they're sold. I'll turn it over to Andrew if he has anything. I'm not sure the monitors are generally part of it. I think that I know in my agency, we try to hold on to the monitors because monitors go and then you don't have to buy them again. So we'll give them to the people where a monitor has gone out. So I'm not sure on the monitors for surplus, but I'm sure Andrew has that answer.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, the monitors are usually not included very often. We have problems where monitors are usually at the end of life and they burn out, and we have some problems with being able to sell them and then have people not come back and complain that they don't turn on, that kind of thing. Just to give you an idea of some of the scope of what the lots are, you know, we'll have lots of like 140 computers at a time, or 125, and like the director said, that will be the case and everything in it except for the hard drive. Sometimes we'll sell things like extra keyboards. If it comes to us, we will do our best to try and sell it. The majority of the money off of it is made off of the actual computers themselves. And we'll do them into sort of whatever lots are. I've got some examples on a sheet, and we have one that was like a lot of 6, but we have others that are 140, 125, just as they come in. We'll put them out for sale.
Thank you. Follow up. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you guys. So looking at this, obviously the hard drives removed and destroyed. Predominantly, this is probably scrap is what they're going for at this point. They're getting them for the gold, silver, and other metals inside of them, and they're using them in that scrap realm. I would assume, maybe not. But so we're looking at $100,000 to $110,000, $115,000 every 2 years is what you're seeing come in on these sales. What is, I mean, is obviously you're paying people to remove hard drives and to do all of this stuff. What's that turnover as far as financially? Do we have any idea, a window? Is it a situation we're paying someone just to work on computers and paying them $150,000 a year to do work on computers, and we're getting $100,000 every 2 years to sell those computers? Like, have we looked at that at all?
Director?
Chairman Bear, Representative Haroldson, we have not specifically looked at the cost because the way surplus works, the computers are a small part of what we deal with. At surplus, we have furniture, we have statues, we have an elk, I think, that's over in the surplus. So there are 3 employees that work for surplus, correct? And they are in the average of, if you look at the workforce report, average pay. So what they do with the computers is minor, I would say, compared to everything else that they work on. So all of the money from the surplus does go back to the general fund as well. So I hope that answered your question. If you need detail, we can look at that too.
Just one more.
Go ahead,
Just
follow up.
because as people are listening to this, how does the populace access your guys' surplus? What is that avenue that you guys use to sell this stuff?
Director.
Chairman Bear, Representative Harrelson, it's walk-in. You can, if you're looking for a chair and you're a state employee, you can go down to surplus. It's down I forget the name of the road, but it's where all the car dealerships are. We're across the street. It looks like every other state building with the white, I don't even know, it's concrete. So you can walk in. We also have a lot of it online in like a bidding type situation. So it's both. So anybody can walk in and look at surplus and see what they have. Lots of times what we'll do when we're moving somebody into another building or moving them out of a building and they don't need the furniture anymore, it'll go to surplus. And then another agency might need something, so they don't have to buy furniture. They can go down and quote shop at surplus for free. So, and there's a second part of your question. Oh, sorry. And we can give you this information. So the grand total, I know we gave you the computer number. The grand total for surplus for BFY 2019-2020 was $859,486. The grand total for BFY 2021-2022 was 2.6 million, essentially. And then 2023-2024 needs a little bit of an adjustment, but 3.4 million. So there's quite a bit, and the computers are a small part of it.
But we'll be interested to hear how that elk goes. And
Well, it's available.
I'm hopeful that your three people are trained to feed that elk.
It is a taxidermied elk. And thank you.
Mr. Chairman. If I can just make a plug, we use Public Surplus is the company that we go through, so publicsurplus.com. You can search for State of Wyoming on there, or you can go through our website. And we put all of our auctions on there with pictures, as many details as we can, so people can look at those from all around the country. And since we moved to an online platform, it's greatly helped the program be able to get more revenue and greater exposure.
Okay, other questions about surplus property? Representative Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Do other agencies realize they have access to shopping per se? I know I just visited a state agency and they were in need of chairs. And so I told them to reach out to you guys because that was a logical thing, but I don't know if they have yet, but we'll talk later about that.
Director Bach.
Chairman Bear, Representative Smith, my understanding is all agencies know. I'm not saying all employees know, but the agencies are aware. And we have a lot of traffic that goes down to get chairs. Sometimes we don't have a lot of chairs. Chairs tend to outlast the employee, or the employee outlasts the chair. So that's something that maybe today, when they hear us talking at the JAC, that would remind them to go down to a surplus. We can also put out an email to remind people, and we generally have an ANI newsletter, and we talk about surplus in that too.
Hello. Thank
Smith.
you. Does the numbers you gave us also include like automobiles that are also sold then as well?
Chairman Bear, Representative Smith, yes, it does.
Other questions on property, surplus property? All right, seeing none, other questions, Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director, for being with us. I do want to ask, something had come to my mind. I was reading through budgets and reading through things, that there was a rate holiday on insurance premiums that had been given in the past. Is that correct? And then who made that decision, and was the legislature involved in that decision?
Director Bach.
Chairman Bear, Representative Angelos, yes, there was, since I've been at ANI, I've been at ANI as a Human Resource Division Administrator and then Director. When I was Administrator, there was a rate holiday, I believe it was 2016, 2017, is that about right? And that was a decision made by the prior Governor Meade. And I think it was 2016. And I can double check that for you and get detail. I'm reaching back to, but that's the only one that we've done a rate holiday. We do not like rate holidays. It creates issues. So yes. Does that answer your question? Would you like me to get you more detailed information on that? Great, I will.
Yeah, I'd like to know how that was funded back in that time. And was there another rate holiday during the COVID pandemic?
Chairman Bear, there was not one during COVID. What happened with COVID is, if at the end of Governor Meade's term, we had some issues with EGI balances going pretty low. We were in a difficult situation right when I came in, and I don't want to say luckily, but luckily, when COVID hit, everybody stopped using insurance. We were able to build up our reserves again and able to fix that issue within a year. And we had expected it to be approximately 5 years to fix that issue. We did not have a rate holiday during COVID, but it did help us quite a bit.
So,
and I can get more information for you on that too.
Back to 2016 then, do you recall how the legislature covered the expenditure for the rate holiday?
Mr. Chairman.
Director Hibbard.
When a rate holiday takes effect, the agency portion of the contribution for EGI is not billed to the agency, nor is the employee's contribution to EGI for that period of the rate holiday. So basically what you're saying is we're not billing you during the rate holiday. So there is no funding of it. It's just saying we're not going to bill you for this extent of time. And typically that just has to do with the management of excess cash balances versus the performance of the plan. But there is no funding. It's just simply stop billing for that rate holiday period. So the employer, including special revenue, general funds, federal funds, benefits during the rate holiday, and the employee's contribution is also a benefit during the rate holiday period.
Director, in 2016, was there a balance, a surplus balance?
Mr. Chairman, that would be what would drive a rate holiday, would be the market or the estimated what the expectation of the balance should be versus what the balance is. And since then, there has been an extensive amount of work done establishing what the cap should be, what the target should be, and what the minimum should be, and we operate inside of that.
Any further comments or questions? Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question about the employee pay tables. And so this is on page 121 of your agency's budget request. So we have in front of us the cost of what it would take to transition all employees to those 2024 pay tables. But I'm curious if you have a calculation or a number for us on what it would cost the state in not enacting this change to the pay tables in terms of vacant positions, work not getting done, that cost for hiring and training and that turnover. I don't know if you have a calculation for your own agency or enterprise-wide, but I would just love to be able to share with my constituents that cost-benefit analysis of making sure our hardworking employees are paid well, paid competitively so that we can recruit and retain, and what the cost to the state is if we don't do that. Thank you.
Director?
Chairman Bear, Representative Sherwood, I can get you that information. I don't have that at the top of my head. I mean, I have how much it costs for turnover generally per person. I will say that we just got done doing the 2025 pay table. And even with the 2024 implementation, we'll still be 3.55% back. So we always have said it's about a 3 or 4% jump per year. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's higher. So if we were to, and I'll double check with the staff behind me, if we were to not do the 2024 pay table, we would end up being almost 12% back for the general pay table, much more for like nurses and snowplows and, so we will get you that information, and that might take a little while just to make sure that we include everything, but and we can talk to you about that too and make sure everybody has a copy of that. Thank you.
Director, if you could in that effort, specifically pull out and highlight snowplow drivers and nurses, the ones where we're paying traveling nurses now, and we'd like to, attempt to see what it would take to eliminate traveling nurses and save some money there. We have 5 hospitals, and if you could break it down for each of those 5 hospitals so we could see how many nurses are needed, what your analysis is as far as what the pay would be necessary to hire them away from being traveling nurses for each of those 5 hospitals.
Chairman Bear, I'll work with Director Johansson on that as well. We have been slightly involved with the subcommittee, and I think that he has that information. When we discussed with him with the committee, moving the pay table to 2024 fit exactly what he was asking the subcommittee to do. It just further emphasizes that what the market is. And the problem with traveling nurses is they're paying triple. So we are doing everything we can to make sure that number for nurses works to get rid of the traveling nurses. The snowplow drivers, I can call Aaron Williams up here. I think we have a little bit of information on that, but if you want me to put it all in one, it'll probably be easier on a piece of paper for you.
It would.
Okay.
And I think specifically, we'd like to know highway patrol officers as well.
Okay.
Representative Sherwood, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also think attorneys is one of those that has a large lag in the gap. And so when we're paying contract out of house, I assume that those costs are higher in the same way that the traveling nurses costs are higher. And I know a lot of this is here, so we're asking you to pull and summarize data for us. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Chairman Bear, Representative Sherwood, yes, the attorneys were part of that. The bulk of what we work with are in-house attorneys. However, as attorneys know, there's conflict counsel. There are other areas where we don't have the ability to have somebody dedicated for an amount of time. So yes, we do actually have to go out and contract attorneys as well. And there is a big difference from what we're paying the attorneys. And nobody's saying that we shouldn't. As an attorney that worked for the AG's office for a while, there's a reason you apply for the Attorney General's office. You want to be in the best law office in the state. And you want to be able to work reasonable hours and not bill and do all that. So there's a reason why people go to the AG's office. We're not saying that you should pay them $400 an hour like a private attorney would get. It's just a matter of making sure that we can get quality attorneys for the market rate for an attorney general position, not necessarily the market rate for the private sector.
Okay. Senator Group.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. As long as we're just piling on here. No, all these questions, no, we're trying to wrestle with this business about pay tables and how this works. And we get a lot of testimony. It's like the traveling nurses. I think it would interest the committee to know when we talk about traveling nurses, we talk about hiring companies that pay people who travel. So now what you're doing is not only you're paying an employee, you're paying the overhead for a company that provides them. That's what drives that cost up. But more to the point for me, what I'm looking for is we've talked about what we've done in the past 3-4 years with regards to trying to get back to market. I know this information is available in the workforce report, but same thing for me to help the committee kind of get a broad picture. Take a 10-year snapshot. What was happening in the 7 years prior to what happened in the last 3 years to give you an overall snapshot as far as across the enterprise, how the pay tables went. Because I know in some respects it was uneven. And we've been trying to get things compressed together so everybody across the enterprise works. But I think it'd be good for the committee to see that 10-year look at a cross section of it. So just to help crystallize that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Bear. Senator Guru, I do believe we have that information readily available. And maybe Aaron's coming up to discuss that. I will say that in the last 10 years, it's been somewhat difficult to really show the picture because it's so up and down. When we went through phase 1, phase 2, that was essentially to adjust what we're paying with the Hay methodology. So the Hay methodology is not compensation, it's classification. So what that does is tell you, here's a classification, here's what they should be paid, or here's the range they should be paid in. And in the last couple iterations of increases, what we tried to do and what we successfully did was use a bunch of different metrics so that we don't end up with compression. We had some situations where we had supervisors who started to bump up against their employees were getting the same rate. Supervisor's been there for 25 years. We couldn't get anybody into the state without paying them closer to market. So what that did was move people, and now we have everybody where, I won't say everybody, 90% of the folks where they should be in relation to their employees. And now we're able to just move the pay tables. So that's something new that we haven't really done in the last couple years. The last couple years were very difficult. Those that have been on the JAC know how hard it was to try to understand that. We're involved in that on a daily basis, and we have to sit down at a table and wrap our heads around it. The 10-year snapshot is something we can easily get for you for the entire enterprise. And we can add that with the other questions that we have here. The one question I did have, when you say highway patrol, are you saying Trooper 1 through Trooper 3? Or are you including the upper management with that too?
No, Trooper 1 through 3.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you. Okay, further questions? Director, it's my understanding that the state library is under your purview as well. Is that accurate?
Chairman Mayor, absolutely. And she is here today. She was not
Okay.
here. As I said, she was a new mother, so she's here today to answer any questions that you
Okay,
have.
thank you for that. You might bring her up because I have some questions.
And her name is Abby Beaver, and she'll be able to answer your questions. She's the administrator. She has been at the library for
Almost 10 years.
almost 10 years.
All right. Thank you for your service in the library. We appreciate that. You're probably aware that the Joint Judiciary Committee is bringing up some concerns that we've seen across the state with parental supervision of their children and the materials that are available in children's sections of the libraries. My question to you has to do with what the state library provides to the libraries throughout the state. So one of the items that is provided is Libby, which is it's electronic books, videos, these types of things. And it was my understanding the last time JAC or Joint Judiciary Committee brought this up, that at that time Libby wasn't providing any kind of parental controls. I've heard rumors that has changed. I'd like to hear your perspective on whether Libby has parental controls on the type of material that's available to children.
Recently, I think it was in August or September, the company of Libby added more ability within the app for parents to go in and change what their children can access. I haven't played with that myself, but it should put some limitations. Okay, it should put some limitations on what children are accessing, but then again, it also depends on what what metadata the publishers add to those books. And that's not really something that the state library or the libraries across the state can modify. We can contact the company and request that they change a material from like a general audience to a child audience if we don't think that it fits within that category. And so far, they've been pretty receptive.
Okay. And I assume you have a method for the public to approach you and ask for that type of a change.
Yeah, they can approach their local libraries or the governing board, wild governing board too. The state library doesn't provide Libby to all of the public libraries. Each library has its own license with Libby. And then we just provide the public catalog for the information of those books to be searched.
Okay, so it is, the parent has to go in and opt into those particular controls, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that common across the nation as far as libraries? It's not really already set to protect the children from harmful material, and then where the parents have to actually go in and
For
select
Libby or for
Libby, and I assume you also might have other programs besides Libby that provide these kind of materials.
I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look into that for other states. I'm just aware of what we do in our state.
Okay. And your department pays for Libby. Is that also pay for the Libby for those individual libraries, or do they pay a separate?
No, we
fee?
don't. That's separate.
Okay. If you could get back to the committee and let us know,
Sure.
what you see in those parental controls and really how it does work, I think that would be helpful for us.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Right. And also, you know, whatever your fee is for administering Libby as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. If there's no other questions, I think we'll move on. We'll let you guys all go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
coming back.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and take 5 minutes before we start with the next agency. Ms. Chasten, are we online and ready? Okay. Director Richards, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, the next agency is actually the 1 o'clock agency, Agency 38. However, for those of you who are using the hard copy books, this is actually in 006B because it is technically an independent operating board or commission. And then it's found within that book under tab 38. And before you today, I believe, is the Director of the Gaming Commission, Nick Laramundi. And I believe he's joined by his fiscal staff out of the Department of Administration and Information, Roy Horsley.
All right. Director Laramundi, welcome. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for coming early.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
And so if you'd please introduce yourself to the public and the committee, and then you can go ahead and proceed with your remarks.
Thank you, Chairman. With me today is my Deputy Director, Special Agent Supervisor Mike Steinberg, and Rory Horsley, the CFO from ANI Accounting. She's also here on behalf of the Wyoming Gaming Commission. And then I also have Ms. Barb Wallace, Principal Accountant with ANI Accounting as well. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to present our budget to you. The Commission is a self-funded administrative, regulatory, and law enforcement agency that derives nothing from the general fund. Our agency is funded 100% by permit and licensing fees, as well as legislated mandatory percentages derived from wagering activity. We are centrally located in Casper, Wyoming. However, during our live racing season, we operate pilot licensing offices at each racetrack. The governor, with the consent of the Senate, shall appoint 9 members of the commission in accordance with Wyoming Statute 2812-101 through 2812-103. Additionally, 1 senator is appointed by the President of the Senate to act as a liaison to the Senate. That position is currently held by Senator Kolb. 1 representative is appointed by the Speaker of the House to act as a liaison to the House, and that position is currently held by Representative Bob Davis. And in addition to those 2, there's also a gubernatorial representative to act as a liaison to the governor, and that is currently held by Mr. Tom Lovinaw. The Wyoming Gaming Commission employs 15 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees, and we have the ability to hire 14 contract employees throughout the summer race season. Those are our stewards, our state vet, safety officers, additional licensing personnel, and so on. Our full-time staff includes personnel in administration, accounting and audits, administrative compliance, our law enforcement division, our licensing division, and our Wyoming Bred program. Many of our staff wear multiple hats and perform multiple duties across disciplines. The Wyoming Gaming Commission is charged with authorizing by license or permit and supervising all of the conduct of all events provided for and authorized by Wyoming law. These include parimutuel wagering activity, both live horse racing and historic horse racing, simulcasting and advanced deposit wagering, skill-based amusement games, online sports wagering, charitable gaming, and also enforcing Title VI, Chapter 7 of Wyoming State Statutes, which is the illegal gambling laws. I took over as Executive Director of the Commission in November of 2024, just a little over a year ago. In my tenure as the Director, I have focused my attention on 3 key areas. Compliance. Compliance safeguards the integrity of all gaming operations. Strong oversight helps ensure that games are conducted fairly and that outcomes are not manipulated, and that all operators and license holders follow established rules. Without effective compliance, public confidence in gaming quickly erodes, which can undermine the legitimacy of the entire industry. Clear rules and consistent enforcement create a level playing field for all licensed operators and encourage responsible business practices. This also allows for the industry to grow in a way that is transparent and accountable. The second thing I've focused attention on is streamlining reporting and internal practices. This is to save time and effort with our staff, improve accuracy and accountability. This also helps support better decision-making for our commission and guides the regulatory process. It also encourages transparency and fairness. And the last thing that I've really spent a lot of time with is training and education. Training and education helps our staff and our commissioners stay updated on the best gaming and regulatory practices and policies, as well as compliance requirements, allowing us to enforce rules correctly and consistently and make changes when necessary. The gaming industry evolves quickly. Education enables us to understand new gaming platforms, online systems, and help us regulate a modern gaming environment. Education also helps us recognize the risks and underage gaming, addiction, data privacy issues, online harassment, and many other things, allowing us to implement effective safeguards. Before going on and discussing the figures, I would like to briefly highlight a few major accomplishments for our agency the past year. Late in 2024, there was national concern surrounding athlete harassment, specifically around the collegiate level. The Wyoming Gaming Commission acted swiftly, promulgating rules that ban any bettor being found guilty of harassment. This means that that person would be no longer able to hold an account or wager on any collegiate or professional athletics after that time. And furthermore, they could be charged criminally for that conduct. Wyoming was the first state to take this approach. That we had some other states that just banned prop bets. Wyoming was the first state to take the approach of actually holding the accused accountable. And since then, many states have followed suit.
Director Laramani, this prohibition on betting on sports, I mean, does this go across state lines then where they wouldn't be able to do that? Or is it just within the state of Wyoming? And what sports can they legally bet on?
Thank you, Chairman Bear. So currently, in order to do online sports wagering in Wyoming, you have to be in the state of Wyoming. If a person was found in violation of this rule and we put them on what we call our involuntary exclusion list, that gets sent to the operators of our licensed sports books. Therefore, those sports books would ban that person across their platform. So it could follow them across state lines.
Thank you.
The next big accomplishment that I'm actually quite proud of is about advanced deposit wagering. If you're not familiar with advanced deposit wagering, that's like your classic TVG that you see on television. A player opens an account, they fund the account, they can, wager on their phone, placing pari-mutuel wagers on a horse race while watching it on TV at home. Wyoming law specifically states that pari-mutuel wagering activity may only take place in counties that have authorized it. There are 7 counties in the state of Wyoming that have not authorized pari-mutuel wagering. However, ADWs for years and years operated in those said 7 counties. As of today, that no longer happens. Those ADWs are all using the same or similar technology that we require of sports wagering, to where it's all geo-fenced. You have to be outside of those 7 counties and outside of tribally owned territory in order to place a advanced deposit wagering on a horse race or a dog race. That was something that was worked on for a very long time, and we were able to really get that spearheaded and done in pretty short order this last year. One of the other things our agency went from an administrative agency to a full law enforcement agency about 3 years ago. Since then, we have worked multiple criminal investigations across the state. These range from very large scale illegal iGaming, offshore iGaming, that successfully was prosecuted. They ended up pleading guilty to multiple charges in Natrona County. We've also investigated and effectively closed down some large scale poker rooms and poker halls that were being operated as nothing more than a poker hall. We are currently working with county attorneys and prosecutors across the state in multiple other areas with several different cases that I can speak to at a later time. On top of the criminal investigations, our commission staff has taken a very strong approach on administrative regulations as well. Currently, right now, I have 11 pending administrative hearing cases in front of OAH and with our attorney for administrative rule violations. These range from an individual license holder that may be taking part in unsanctioned racing, which is a violation of our rules, If you're familiar with horse racing at all, you might be familiar with what's known as match racing. Match racing is usually done between 2 or 3 horses. It's very unregulated. It's very dangerous. And it causes huge concern for our commission to have licensed participants here taking part in unsanctioned, highly illegal racing in other jurisdictions. We've identified several people that are licensed here that play here that we found to be in violation. Some of those cases are still pending. Some of them we've actually ended up settling with these license holders, and now they're under 3-year suspensions for having a license and have been issued substantial fines as well. And lastly, most recently, about a month ago, Wyoming joined the National Voluntary Self-Exclusion Program. This is a pretty big deal for us as well. Now, before with self-exclusions, a person could, fill out a form on our website. They would send it to our office. We would ensure that we pass that on to all of our licensed operators. So they were kind of excluding themselves from gaming specific to Wyoming. But with the National Voluntary Self-Exclusion Program, we are able to now partner with our neighboring states that also have joined this program. So if you live to the south and you come and play just right here outside of town, that self-exclusion now crosses state lines. So if they self-exclude from our neighbor to the south, then we will also know about that. And our operators will know that they've already excluded from Colorado, so they shouldn't be allowed to play here as well. Over the past biennium, our office has strengthened oversight of gaming operations across the state. Through increased inspections, targeted audits, and improved coordination with licensees and local law enforcement partners, we have worked to ensure that legal gaming activities operate within the law and in accordance with regulatory standards, and illegal operations are addressed accordingly. Although many times this is not popular with some of the illegal operations, these efforts at a minimum protect consumers, and they also deter illegal activity. We have also focused on improving efficiency and consistency in our compliance processes by modernizing the way that we report things, the practices that we do internally, enhancing staff training, and prioritizing risk-based enforcement. Our office has been able to do more with existing resources while maintaining the highest levels of standards and accountability. The budget before you reflects these priorities. It is designed to sustain effective gaming regulation, support compliance efforts, and protect the public interest. This also ensures our office remains responsive to a rapidly evolving gaming landscape. We appreciate the committee's continued support and oversight, and I look forward to discussing our budget and answering any questions.
Okay. Any questions for the director? Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, I believe you mentioned gambling addiction or whatever, or people that have a problem. What precisely do you do other than, hey, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800 blah, blah, blah. What exactly do you offer as a service or to try to help them not gamble away the house?
Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator French. So the voluntary self-exclusion program is done for people that understand that they may have a problem with gambling and they are looking to hold themselves accountable for their actions. So when somebody voluntarily self-excludes with our office, we take their information minus certain identifying information that we won't share with operators, but we send that to all of our operators across every platform that we regulate. Online sports wagering, skill-based amusement games, pari-mutuel wagering. And those individuals, so for example, historic horse racing is the biggest one. They have player tracking systems. Those operators can take the information that we send them and put that into their system that this person has self-excluded. So if that player comes into one of their locations, tries to sign up to be a card member or a club member or sit down and play the games, their staff will be alerted that this person has excluded themselves because they have recognized that they have a problem. And then their staff is trained to go in there, have a conversation with them, encourage them, give them resources to reach out to, and try to get them away from a gambling period.
Follow it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What resources are they referred to?
Director?
Mr. Chair, Senator French. So currently, we have like the Wyoming Coalition on Problem Gambling, the National Council on Problem Gambling. There's those national resources. And at a local level, we're trying to work with some of our operators to give them resources at a local level that they can refer local people to as far as mental health and everything else.
Good. Okay. Other questions? Director, there was an outside service hired to give this committee some direction, prior committee members, as to how they could put some sideboards on gambling. One of the outcomes of that study was that the state needed to have money laundering laws on the books. You've been in the enforcement business for the last 3 years. Have you had any money laundering cases? And how did you work with the feds in that regard, if you did have any?
Chairman Bear, thank you for the question. So these are very difficult cases to work. And unless they are extremely large scale, the feds don't want anything to do with it. We've had suspected money laundering that we've reached out to federal partners with, but if it's at a small scale, they really don't want much to do with it. So that is why it's so important to have state laws that, that our office and our law enforcement team could use. I can't give you many details because I just got the email on the road here this morning, but I actually got an email from one of our operators of a suspected money laundering situation that was going on at one of our local OTBs. And they've already provided us with all the documents, and we'll start looking through that one as well.
One of the methodologies to try to curb some of the expansion of OTBs was to increase taxes. Do you have any data as to what the human behavior result would be? What we heard testimony in the CapFin committee was that, if you raise the taxes, and it was a considerable increase percentage-wise, then those illegal operators would become more a better option for the gambler, and then we'd see more of this illegal gambling. What would your opinion be of that particular situation?
Thank you, Chairman Bear. So I'll take these individually because they're all a little different. So on the online sports wagering side, I could see how the conclusion could be drawn that it would push people out to other operators. We have some pretty small, the sports wagering conglomerate, we'll say, in the state of Wyoming. We don't have a very big, market for online sports wagering. So we have some sports books that really don't make a lot. So that kind of increase in taxes would effectively shut probably those smaller ones down. In fact, I think when we had looked at that, I think we determined probably three of our 5 would most likely fold up shop because it just wouldn't be cost effective for them to do business. So it would be optional for the people that are on those platforms to go to an unregulated platform that's readily available. They are readily available. On the skill-based amusement game side of it, I'm trying to remember, I think that was like a 5% increase. I think ultimately what that ends up doing is, those get split between the vendors and the operators. So some of our local businesses, our local bars, local pubs, mom and pop diners with a liquor license, they're the ones that ultimately would shoulder that increase on the taxes for the skill-based amusement game. And then uniquely with the HHR side of it, if you look at the statute currently, HHR parimutuel wagering works a little bit differently than, house-based wagering. So there's no house. You're not playing against a house. The operators take their percentage, which is called a commission, right off the top. Currently on an HHR machine, it's between 8 and 9%. According to Wyoming law, they can go up to a 35% commission rate. which would be huge. They probably would never do that because that would just drive customers away anyway. But ultimately that 8 or 9% commission rate could very easily be a 10 or 11% commission rate, to where it's just less payback to the public to make up the gap for that added tax increase. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Where would those HHR gamblers go if they decided that this 8 or 9, this 9 to, or 10 to 11, I'm sorry, less going to the payout? Where would they go to scratch their itch?
Chairman Bear, I think the one concern that I would have with them trying to scratch it would be going to the illegal online iGaming market.
And how would you and your organization enforce against those illegal online gambling?
Thank you, Chairman Bear. It's very difficult. A lot of these are overseas. We don't have that far of a reach. The one that I had quoted or spoke to earlier in Natrona County, where we got a successful prosecution, that's because we had a local person that was running the games, sending all the money overseas, but he was kind of the bank, we'll say. So that one was easy for us because we could get hands on that person. But when it's strictly online and they're funneling this money to, Turks and Caicos or wherever else they may be, it's very, very difficult for us to do anything. All we can do at that point is do our best to ensure that the public understands that these are unregulated, illegal markets, and it's dangerous. And I think at least weekly, we probably get 2 to 3 complaints from not always Wyoming residents, but a lot of these offshore operators can very easily get a Wyoming LLC online. So they'll register as a Wyoming company, and then it has a Wyoming address on it. In fact, I just got one 2 days ago from, I think he was from New York, to where he had put several $1,000s in his account. He played, he went to cash it out, they closed it. They said, no, you're not getting your money. Then they contacted us because he has a Wyoming LLC, but there's nothing that we can do for that either. So right now we're just trying to educate the public and make sure that they steer clear of those. They are not safe to partake in at all.
In a situation like that, do you report that to the Secretary of State's office about that LLC?
Chairman Bear, we have, yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. And I suppose we need to follow up with them to find out what happens in that case. On that Natrona case, I can imagine that, it's so lucrative that this could be like whack-a-mole. Do you anticipate another person stepping in where that banker was prosecuted?
Chairman Bear, I do. I think they'll probably do it maybe a little bit differently and not so publicly facing. But like I said, we've developed a really good team of law enforcement people. There's 5 of us in our office, myself included, that are all sworn peace officers. Every one of us has 20 plus years of investigative or law enforcement experience. We've generated a lot of good people out there that give us information to work those kind of cases. Right now, I don't have any more of those on our radar. I think the example that was set with that case helped very much so that this is not a good idea and it's not any way to make money.
Okay, well done in that regard. You mentioned your staff. Earlier, you pointed out that you have the ability to hire 14, I believe, part-time during the summer when the horse racing is going on. I don't see that here on your chart on page 3 of your budget. Where would I see these 14 part-time employees? I see 2 part-time employees here. And I have a cold, so maybe I misheard you. I just want to make sure we have the right
No, Chairman Bear,
information.
that is correct. So those are all contract employees. So those would be in our 900 series. Those wouldn't be allotted on that table.
Okay. And that they're not going to show up as an AWAC either.
That is correct.
Okay. And you don't have any problem or any difficulty hiring those people for the summer?
Chairman Bear, every year. We have issues on a couple of them. So those, excuse me, we never have to go that many. We have Seven is what we do. We have 3 stewards that we hire for the racetrack. We have a vet assistant, a safety officer, and a licensing clerk. Our safety officer and our licensing clerk have been coming back for years, so that one's really easy. Our vet has been the commission's vet for the last 15 years. He's a regulatory vet. He understands horse racing. He's great. So that one's easy to fill. The steward sometimes gets a little more difficult. We have one steward that's been coming here for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. Sometimes other ones, they come from all over the state. They have to be steward certified. They have to hold a Steward 1 certificate and be trained in that. So that one can get a little complex sometimes, but we manage.
Since you bring up the vet, can you just share with the committee and the public a little bit about short tracks versus long tracks, the safety? We had some issues a couple of years ago at one of our tracks, or maybe a couple of our tracks, where the horses were running into some issues. What is your outlook as far as the track safety? And just kind of give us a synopsis of short track versus long track.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. So a couple of years ago, we did have multiple breakdowns at one of our tracks. It was very difficult to know exactly what causes those breakdowns. If it's track conditions or if it's a training issue. That year it was a very long winter, unlike what we're having now. So the horses didn't get out and get a lot of training. But after that took place, the commission promulgated emergency rules, and now we have standard rules that we have to do independent safety inspections prior to each race meet each year. And since we're doing that 2 years ago, our breakdown average is at or below the national average for breakdowns. Unfortunately, in horse racing, there's always going to be some sort of an accident, just like with any sort of athletic event. I think this year we did roughly 60 days of racing, and I think the entire year we had six breakdowns on the track, which is really good. I think we had over 3,000, 4,000 starts. So we kept that, we dropped that number down. All of our tracks, with the exception of one, I think one of them is about 7/8 of a mile. So they're, that one's really more quarter horse. For quarter horses, most of your quarter horses run between 250, 350 yards. So it's a straight shot anyway. The thoroughbreds run the longer distances. A lot of our thoroughbreds are running at 7/8 mile or mile long track. Currently there's a 1 mile track being built just outside of town here. The other second largest track would be Wyoming Downs in Evanston. That's a 7/8 mile track.
Thank you. All right. I think we've completed all of our questions. Did you have any closing remarks you'd like to share with? Oh, I do want to ask you, can you explain the exception request where it's you're backing off of your expenditures?
Certainly. Would you like me to go through all of them, or
No,
just
just
want me to
give
go
us
to
a
that one?
general 30,000 foot. What's happening that you're able to reduce your expenditures? We appreciate it. Look, don't get me wrong. Just an explanation so that we can explain that on the floor of the House and Senate.
Thank you, Chairman Bear. So this one, a couple of years ago, what we were tasked or asked to do is the Gaming Commission has statutorily mandated distributions to cities and towns from multiple different wagering trends, from off-track wagering and historic horse racing, skill-based amusement games, online sports wagering. For the longest time, the commission never had that in their budget, and we would have to go do B11s for years to get the spending authority to pay out those statutorily required distributions. A couple of years ago, we wrote those into our standard budget to not have to go do B11, so we had that funding available. Well, since then, working with the SAO's office, we found that there's actually, since these are statutorily mandated, there's nothing that we can do about it. There's a way that the state auditor's office can work to make sure that that's put in the system a way to where we can make those statutorily required disbursements at the amount that is required without having it in our standard budget. And that way, the budget that you look at more reflects what our actual budget is. I know, 2 years ago, I wasn't in this seat, I was in that seat, but I remember trying to explain a $71 million budget for the Gaming Commission that's, 700% more than what our actual operating budget is, was very difficult. So this way you really see what our operating budget is.
And could that same process be used for the Breeders' Award?
Chairman Bear, it is. Yep, that is one of the other negative exception requests in here. That's the on page 39. Chairman Bear, just to clarify, there's actually 4 negative exceptions, and all 4 of those are for statutorily required transfers. So the one is for our quarterly Lizera transfer, that's anything over $1.5 million in our operational account. The other is our skill-based amusement game distributions to cities, towns, and counties. The other is parimutuel, city, town, and counties, and then the last one is the Breeders' Award.
Okay, so now all of those are being done by the auditor's office, and it's not something on your budget.
Chairman, that is correct.
Okay. Director Hibbard?
Mr. Chairman, this is a transparency situation where in the beginning, this was a small budget, and we had the spending authority reflective of the revenue distributions. We got $6 to $8 billion of revenue distributions that we don't put spending authority in the budget: coal, severance taxes, sales taxes, all that. So what this is to say, we don't want the public to think that we're spending $71 million to administer gaming. What we're saying is there's a small portion that's going to remain in the budget, so that's the operational cost and reflective in the budget. And then those statutory distributions, no difference in sales tax or coal, will be managed in the same way from the state auditor's office by the statutory requirements laid out by the legislature. So this is really trying to not send the wrong message to the public that we're spending $71 million to administer a program when truly we're distributing revenue that we're collecting from a program. So hopefully that helps.
Director, is the Breeders' Cup Award, is that statutorily different than those other examples?
Mr. Chairman, we were very careful in each one of these standard budget modifications to specifically spell out these statutory distributions. So in each one of these layers, you will see that the Gaming Commission has identified each particular statute that requires distribution of revenue.
Director Richards, am I missing anything here, or?
Mr. Chairman, I would just want to point out that of the 4, 3 of them have language that clearly permits the distribution akin to severance taxes, sales taxes. The Breeders' Cup Award statute, which is Wyoming Statute 1125-201, does not have that appropriation or direction in there. It merely states that contributions shall be used only for breeder awards. So why do I bring this up is the legislature has the power of the purse, if you will, and you typically would appropriate or designate through language that says these funds shall be continuously appropriated, or these funds shall be continuously directed to the Breeders' Award. That special language does not appear in that particular statute, unlike the other 3 examples. So just a caution there. So why am I worried about this? Is because come June, you're home and the AG or someone else makes a point that says, under what authority do you have to direct this to the Breeders' Cup? You have no appropriation for these funds. Potentially, you could use a B11 in this case, not a documentary B11, but an actual B11. Even that requires 3 conditions be met. Are those 3 conditions met, or one of those 3 conditions met here? For example, unforeseen revenue is suddenly become available. Well, this is arguably foreseen revenue, right? We're expecting. Does this reduce general fund appropriations? No, there's no general funds involved. So those are the challenges that we just, our legal staff just wants you to be aware of, that there is some risk in changing this accounting mechanism just for this Breeders' Award. Not the cities and towns, not the LSRA, not the SFP. if the executive branch believes that language in 1125-201 is sufficient to be interpreted as a continuing appropriation, that would resolve the issue, but I can't speak for them as to what their interpretation is.
And what was the third criteria?
Yes, the third criteria is an emergency.
Okay. And so I'm assuming that if we decided to statutorily change this to a continuing appropriation, it would be a pretty simple bill to just add a little bit of language then.
Mr. Chairman, it probably would be 2 pages just because of the length of this paragraph, but it would be 1 sentence. Yes.
Simple little bill. We've heard that before. All right. Just wanted to make sure the committee understood that. Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Thank you. Just had a question from another legislator, texted him. Says in their budget, they have $194,950 for Spectrum Gaming Group. Is this a yearly or a one-time fee? And what do they offer the Wyoming Gaming Commission as an organizational service?
Director.
Thank you, Chairman Bear, Representative Pendergraft. That is actually for the one-time study that the chairman referenced just a little bit ago for joint appropriations. That was a one-time expense that was done. We received that study and now we're using that study internally for all sorts of good stuff.
Thank you for the clarification.
Great. Yes, Vice Chairman
Driscoll. Mr. Chairman, Mindy, thank you for all you guys do. Couple questions. One, we've dealt back and forth the FBI stuff for quite a while. Are we all copacetic and everything's good with the FBI across the board now?
Chairman Bear.
Yeah.
Senator Driscoll, that is correct. Yep, we're on the up and up on all things pari-mutuel wagering and skill-based amusement games. There's still some language that's questionable on the online sports wagering, but we're still working, trying to get that figured out.
Mr. Chairman, follow up. Is there something we need to do with it or with the rodeo? Is the rodeo in limbo still, or is it fit?
Mr. Chair, Senator Driscoll, that would all depend on, I guess, the policy decision you all choose to take. Currently, as it stands right now, we cannot do anything with rodeo contestants. They're not included in the definitions list, so the FBI won't process background checks for rodeo contestants. If you choose to do the pari-mutuel wagering on rodeo, they would have to be included in that list of language.
Perfect. Mr. Chairman, another one. Back to the poker and going on, I've got some familiarity of it. One of the big issues is bona fide friends. How do you folks define bona fide friends, and do you leave it up to a county attorney? Because it happens in one town, not in another one. Seems it's up and down. And then last is, I know of at least one really garious case of the gaming or the poker. Is it a widespread problem in Wyoming at this point?
Director, do gamblers need to find a specific county to do their gambling in?
Mr. Chair, Senator Driscoll, the bona fide social relationship definition is complex and difficult. But, we have been working and developing very good relationships with county attorneys. We have 22 county attorneys that all have kind of a different view of how they interpret the law. So we try to work with them early on in these cases to see what they need or what they feel they need for a successful prosecution. The bona fide social relationship exemption in gambling, it's my understanding the original intent of that was to allow friends to play cards in their basement, in their garage, and that's really what it is. So in some of these instances where we have investigators or undercovers going into locations that they don't know a single person and sit down at a card table and are able to play cards for an hour, I personally have a hard time saying that they meet the bona fide social relationship exemption, because I got a guy in there who doesn't know you from Adam and he just played cards with you for the sole purpose of playing cards. So that is one way that we do it. I know that there's potentially a draft bill that'll clean that up this year about the bona fide social relationship and how that looks moving forward. I know The DA here has spoke in front of the Select Committee on Gaming about how helpful that would be and some other changes as well on the illegal side of it. And then as far as if it's a widespread problem, unfortunately, I'm going to say yes, it is a very widespread problem. We are seeing games of all sorts of different renditions pop up across bars and pubs across the state. And we are acting upon them as quickly as we can.
Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. It helps to know there's a bill out there. I didn't know it because that was going to be one of my next questions was, should we be cleaning the language up? The next one is, if it's happening, should we be licensing dealers or do, and I realize it's an expansion of what you folks do, but either we have you regulated or we don't. And if we are going to have it, what would your suggestions be to make sure that it falls under your purview correctly? And that may take more than today, I realize. Thank you.
Director, it sounds like you're regulating them out of business if you can catch them, but go ahead and answer the question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Driscoll. So again, that would be a policy decision. You know, if that's something that the legislation or the legislators ultimately wanted to approve, there would need to be some safeguards to, like you said, vet some of these dealers. I can tell you of one instance here recently of an illegal card game where we were getting calls of players accusing the dealers of scamming cards. They thought that they were using, you know, marked decks and scanned decks. And the problem with that is currently we have somebody calling our office who, according to the law, they're committing a crime. It's a misdemeanor to gamble. And now they're telling us that, you know, they're being ripped off. But I can't help you because what you're doing is illegal anyway. So there has to be a balance if the legislature chooses to, you know, to authorize those kind of poker halls. I think it would definitely take some pretty strict guidelines to where these are established, you know, to where we can really license these people. Again, the bona fide social relationship exemption kind of exists for you and 6 friends to sit down and pass the deal around. Like you're not going to license 6 people at the table, but if you start having professional dealers and stuff like that, they would need to be licensed and everything else. But
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yeah, a bit explanation. Yeah, I get that. I play in a home game. I've never seen anybody mess with a home game, but we actually like to play in a public place once in a while, and then you run into a different realm and we openly talk about it. So that I get. I'm just trying to figure out how we do it right. You folks take the brunt of the complaints. And if you're not part of it, you shouldn't be a part of it. And if you are, you ought to have a hand in it. It's my opinion. So I answered that. Lastly, back to the machines, both HHRs and skill games. Is there some examples out there of unlicensed machines still? And what are we doing on it? Because my thought was when we formed the gaming commission that was strictly a felony if you had a machine in an establishment that wasn't licensed. And are we treating it that way? Because I really feel like it should be. We're pretty upfront and clear. Would you not agree that if you're running a bar and you have a liquor license, that you know that you need to have those licensed? So are we dealing with them harshly or harshly enough? And do we have enough penalties in there to do it? Because I personally think you ought to lose your liquor license. If you got an illegal slot machine or an illegal gaming machine, you ought to lose your liquor license. So could you elaborate on, do we need stricter penalties?
Director.
thank you, Chairman Bear, Senator Driscoll. So currently, like, we're not finding like illegal slot machines in locations or anything like that. You know, one of the things that we have started seeing more and more of is quarter pushers. A lot of people don't realize that a quarter pusher machine is illegal in the state of Wyoming. It is gambling. Risking anything for gain contingent on chance is it's gambling, unless there is an exception to it. There is no exception to a quarter pusher in Wyoming law. As far as unlicensed skill games and are we dealing with these harsh enough? One slight example that I would give you is, you know, we've been doing skill games now for 5 years. In the first couple of years, you know, it was kind of a learning curve for all of our license holders. They were just entering a regulated market a highly regulated market. Gaming is the most regulated market around. So we worked really closely with all of our vendors, and as time has gone by, you know, we have made sure that even our licensed vendors are being held accountable for things. It's not an unlicensed machine per se, but in Wyoming Gaming Commission rules, an operator is not allowed to move a terminal from this bar to this bar without commission approval. There is reasons for that. The main reason for that is tax reasons. These machines collect the money, and when it goes to cities and towns, depending on where that machine's at is deciphers who gets the money. So when these machines are being moved and the commission has no idea that they're being moved, it creates a tax accounting nightmare. We just recently had an operator who entered into an agreement, a settlement agreement with us for violation of that exact rule. They moved multiple machines without contacting the commission, and then these machines were operated in an establishment that they weren't authorized to be in. They operated for about a week before our team found it, and they ended up just paying $7,500 in fines for 3 occurrences of that. And now they're, you know, on probation, we'll say. So if that's found again, they're going to come back before the commission, and ultimately they could lose their license.
Any follow-up? Okay. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just looking in the budget with the 900 special services, can you help me understand like a just shy of $200,000 expense for a gaming group? What does organizational services mean, and what does that help the commission do? And is this a one-time expense or ongoing?
Representative Smith, if you could give us a page number that you're looking at just for the public.
It is on our handout.
Okay.
Third
So the public-
page.
Public would have to go to the budget website to see this.
And the exact amount is $194,950 is listed as organizational services.
Director, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman Bear. Representative Smith. That's the same report that was just referenced a little bit ago, the Spectrum Gaming Study. That was a one-time appropriation for up to $200,000 for the gaming study. Once that gaming study was done and that invoice was paid, that is now dropped off, and that's not something that is on our budget anymore.
Okay, follow. Okay. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, I have one more. Here in this community, we have an HHR facility where there's a bowling alley. And I just want to know if you have any concerns about where young people are being around these things, the whole family's coming into a facility. And, you know, are we training people to be gamblers in the future?
Thank you, Chairman Bear. I think on the HHR side, they do a very good job of restricting entry into these locations. Most, about 92% of all of our HHR facilities also hold liquor licenses. So you're 21 and over before you can enter the door. The location here in town that also has a bowling alley, I think actually they've done a very good job separating the two. In fact, a lot of people will go in another door and not even know that there's an OTB back in the corner at all. You don't have to walk through that door to walk past the OTB side of it before you get to the bowling alley. I've talked to management at that location. They said that actually a lot of the people that are there to utilize the services of the bowling alley or the game room upstairs, they're actually parking on that kind of side of it. So they don't even know that there's no TV there. When I was there once before talking to a customer on the bowling alley side, they had no idea that there was even an OTB in that building. They didn't even know what it was. So I think they really do a very good job. I know there is a lot of concern surrounding skill games, you know, and placement of skill games around underage people. The commission is currently working on some rule changes to where in a establishment that is not statutorily age restricted, i.e. a bar, they have to put these machines in a location that we tell them that they have to put them. So we can dictate where those machines go and how it looks inside of those establishments. So we can do our best to kind of make sure that they're off, you know, in a corner away from everybody to where you know, the younger folks aren't being enticed by that.
Would that include barriers to keep them out of sight?
Representative Barrett would.
Okay. With no further questions, I think we can wrap up. And if you have any closing remarks, feel free to do that.
Thank you, Representative Barrett. I do not have any closing remarks. If you have any other questions for me, just let me know and I can be down here in 2 hours and 17 minutes.
2 hours and 17.
Yeah. If the wind blows the way that it was blowing today, maybe an hour and 47.
Okay. Let's obey all those laws. Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, Director Richards.
Mr. Chairman, that completes your agenda for the morning. This afternoon, you have, I believe, 3 items on your agenda. The Department of Health will be here at 1 p.m. If you want to take them up for a discussion of the Rural Health Transformation Program, as well as any additional follow-up questions, that this will serve as a callback for the Department of Health as well. Secondly, the Secretary of State has agreed to come in for their callback this afternoon. And then finally, I believe you have the optional post-meeting tour if for any members interested.
And what was the time of that tour?
Mr. Chairman, I believe they're flexible, but tentatively that was set for 3:30. But I'm sure they'll be monitoring the progress you're making.
Okay, we're gonna recess until 1 o'clock. Vice Chairman, did you have something? Okay, we are on recess.